Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League Season 4, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 2 of 8 as we've made our way from the United States of America all the way across the Pacific Ocean to Japan for the start of a double header. And where else better to start than the foothills of Mount Fuji? It is the Fuji International Speedway, spanning in excess of what is 4.46 kilometers in length, and we'll start finish straight, which is renowned up and down the international motorsporting calendar for being 0.92 miles in length and just over a kilometre if we convert it to metric. This is a circuit which is not just about its straight, but it's also about its sweeping corners, and the best part of a good strong set of technical corners at the end of the lap, all low speed and all about elevation change and also blind apex, which when you put them all together means that our drivers will need to be just as comfortable with regards to the top end speed of their cars as they will need to be with regards to the handling characteristics and the braking potential of their machinery. Indeed, this is a circuit that throughout history has proven to be the crowning jewel in a number of championships, and perhaps most notable, of course, the 1976 Formula 1 Grand Prix World Championship, which was brought to life in the 2013 film Rush, and it was the first ever televised Formula 1 Grand Prix, the season finale in the battle between Niki Lauda and James Hunt. But we wind forward the best part of what is 50 years or so, 57 years to be exact, and we are here today to see GT3 class racing, much like we do see in the real world of GT World Challenge Asia, taking around the Fuji Speedway circuit. And as all of our drivers get set to go racing today, is expected to be an absolute thriller with a low ambient temperature 18 degrees centigrade and a track temperature currently 24 degrees centigrade. It's relatively cool here in Japan, and that means our drivers will be able to absolutely give it everything, and they'll be able to give it a good blast, and that's what we're all here to see. But as we get ready to go racing, let's take you through our schedule. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 13 minutes time, we're going into the qualifying session, our one and only qualifying session for today, 20 minutes in duration. All our drivers out of the circuit, all looking to set their best possible time. And when we do have a crowd in excess of 30 drivers taken to the track, approximately 35 listed on my entry list so far, it does mean that it's going to be very crowded out there, and lap time is going to come at a premium. And if anybody can find the draft down the start finish straight, they may end up gaining the best part of half a second to an entire second if they time it right. After that, we'll make our way to the grid for the first race of today. That'll be the 20-minute sprint race, kicking off at approximately 20 past 8, after which we'll be taking a breather before a 15-minute warm-up session, and then we do head in to our second race of the day. That'll be the 60-minute feature race, which is anticipated to kick off at what will be at 25 past 9. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and this broadcast is being brought to you live from circuit side by free media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you may be tuning in by one of the 2 official NXTGEN Racing media platforms. Firstly, on YouTube at youtube.com, search for NXTGEN Racing, and we say hello to you guys and girls tuning in there. Alternatively, on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, and hello to you guys and girls tuning on Facebook. And lastly, on the non-official Twitch platform, we do see on twitch.tv/TX141, and we do say hello to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But either media platform you're tuning in for right now, you're in for a thriller of a pair of races, and what this really carries on the story from 2 weeks ago, as we can see, we kicked off 2 weeks ago on the 28th of June at the Sebring International Raceway Circuit. We've gone from the United States of America, and in particular the Florida state, on the rough and bumpy airfield at Hendricks Army Base, and we made our way all the way over to Fuji for today. For it is the 12th of July 2023, and we've got plenty of races in store in another sprint and feature race combo. But after this, in 2 weeks' time, we then conclude our Japanese doubleheader with round number 3, which sees us make our way to neighbouring Suzuka for our first endurance race round of the season. There's going to be a 2-hour no-holds-barred race to the finish, and well, who is going to come out on top at Suzuka? I think anybody who comes out on top today at Fuji will feel as though it's not going to be guaranteed, given the nature of the race is going to take an interesting twist with the extension of the race in round number 3, and also the fact they don't have the short sprint to consider. Then we'll make our way back to the United States of America for round number 4 on the 9th of August. Then we'll be making our way to the picturesque Elkhart Lake Circuit, located in the state of Wisconsin, known as Road America, and that sprint and feature combination is going to be one that's going to be very hotly anticipated for the simple reason it's season 3. We made a way there for the purposes of an endurance race round, but now we're turning the tables over for a sprint and feature, and Road America hits hard, it hits fast, and it's one all about straights and being good on the brakes. Now we'll conclude the first half of the season, but there's no mid-season break, and where you'll make our way straight into round number 5 on the 23rd of August at the Nürburgring combined layout circuit. That's the full 24-hour endurance layout for those of you of the nomenclature, and in Germany you'll get to see our drivers take on their second endurance race round of the season, after which we have another 2-week break before making our way up on the 6th of September to the United Kingdom stadium for the one and only heart of British motorsport, that is Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit. That'll be our final round, where we have a 2-week break between rounds, and then we have a quick fire triple header which sees us make our way to Canada for round number 7 on the 13th of September at the Motorsport circuit of the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, as it's known in full. That'll be our final sprint and feature combination, and then the season finale round 8 of 8 will make our way to France for the Circuit de la Sarve, or the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans, but you all know and love it and refer to it as Le Mans. And on the 20th of September we'll be crowning our champions across the gold, the silver and the bronze classes in the Drivers' Championships, as well as with regards to our team's champions in our third and final endurance race round of the calendar. But speaking of championships, this brings us quite appropriately onto an update after round number 1, and we started with the Gold Class Drivers' Championship, and here we can see leading by 6 points currently is Chris T. Shorter, who unfortunately may not be in attendance today due to health. I've heard he's not feeling too well, and we wish him all the best in a speedy recovery, because it wouldn't be the same without seeing one of the leading drivers from the CSA teams out on the grid, and well, we hope to see Chris back out there as soon as possible. But in the meantime, of course, whilst he's recovering, a number of his rivals will be looking to try and get an edge over him, including the second and third place drivers, both on 31 points, but one ahead of the other based on result countback, and that's Gavan Gardener ahead of Jonathan Cook, with both of them there putting in good performances at Sebring, and both itching to carry that momentum forward tonight. Then P at number 4, we have Benjamin McCluskey on 29 points, is equal to Matt Shorter, but ahead once again on result countback, and these two as well very fast and ferocious in their approach at Sebring, and hot on the heels of the top 3. Then we have Stefan Vessel's P6, the unfortunate driver who pulled off a brilliant P2 in the sprint race at Sebring, that found himself in an open lap incident which put him well down the order, and then midway through the race a further incident which really scuppered his chances of a strong recovery in the feature race at Sebring, and therefore on 26 points he'll be looking for plenty more points today, and make sure that incident in the feature race was a blip on his calendar. Then Miguel Gutierrez Garcia is in P7 on 24 points, one clear of Akram Zanoum, with Gaz Williams and Victor Shimaro completing your top 10, and we're expecting plenty more from Shimaro today, given the fact he did show great glimpses of pace in our first round of the season, but wasn't quite able to put down the foundations that he so desperately wanted. Then at Bester SP11, it's Jan Crack, the best part of a point ahead of Adam Delmont, with Gianni Tahar P13 and Jamie Dory rounding out the gold standings. And as we come onto the silver class standings, meanwhile, we can see it's Tristan Engelstad who leads the way by 2 points over Lee Horn. It's interesting to see at the moment we've had contrasting fortunes for the two drivers. Engelstad has proven to be the faster of the two versus Horn, but the difference has been that Horn has been the more consistent and able to stay out of trouble. That's not to say that Engelstad's not a fast driver and able to keep clean, but trouble seems to find Engelstad last time out at Sebring, and that's why he's only 2 points ahead of Horn. Meanwhile, Horn was able to put together a great pair of results, keeping it calm, keeping it consistent, and therefore that separation of 2 points really goes to show the different natures of the drivers, and could we see more of that today. However, it'd be rude of us not to include Russell Fowler in that group. In P3 on 30 points, looking to chase down the top 2, but he's got to be aware of the fact he's only 3 points clear of both Matthew Addy and Sergio Gonzalez Martin, with the top 5 being rounded out there with only an 8-point gap between P1 and P5. Next, a further point behind for Paul Scott and Stefan Albanese, with Ben Bennyworth P8. Bennyworth showing glimpses of good pace in the feature race in particular, but still need to find a little bit of sharpness in the sprints, and then David Camano finishing it off in the P9 there ahead of Jack Barker, who completes your top 10. We then do have in P11, apologies for the duplication of driver names in P11 and P12, but in P11 it should be Alfonso F. Marin with Ernesto de la Fuente completing your standings there on 15 points. We then come on to the bronze class, and here we can see Sean Scudder leads the way by 4 points over Davide Falvo. The two CSA drivers there leading the way, but they've got Nigel Stock hot on their heels a further point behind, and Nigel Stock really finding his feet as Sebring in what was the feature race, and we're expecting plenty more for him today to try and mix up with the top 2. Jordan Baybois, P4 there, defending GT3 bronze champion, if you will. Baybois right now only a further point behind and looking to try and right the wrongs of Sebring. We did find himself coming unstuck a couple of times despite the ferocious pace of his Ferrari, and Craig Tillston completed your top 5 there, a further 2 points behind, only inside the top 5 base of result countback, with Daniel Fritz P6 ahead of Mark Sykes, Alexander Rogenbach P8 ahead of Jorge Santos, with Josh Brown completing your top 10. Bester SP11, Elwin Sykes at 17 points, the same as Wesley Lewin. The two CSA drivers there also looking to break into the top 10 today, and Daniel Stillman completing your standings P13 on 10 points, and perhaps the most unfortunate of them all last time out in the bronze class, being involved in a multitude of incidents which were not necessarily his fault, and we're looking to try and steer clear of the danger today. Then we come on to the Teams Championship, and here we can see taking an early lead by a significant margin of what is their 23 points is Chris Shorter Academy Pink, or CSA Pink, ahead of Next Gen Team Purple. Meanwhile, Next Gen Team Red are only a third point behind, with Chris Shorter Academy Green and Chris Shorter Academy Blue completing your top 5. So it really goes to show at the moment it does look as though the top 5 being heavily contested by the CSA teams and to the Next Gen teams, although do keep in mind that KFM Motorsport Yellow are only outside the top 5 based on result countback, and the same applies for Quad Dash Racing, with both teams being P6, P7 respectively. Now further 5 points wise, the Next Gen Racing Team Pink, with KFM Motorsport Red and FR20 Sim Racing completing your top 10, and P11 best of the rest, and completing the standings, Crest Autosport in P11, 24 points and only 3 off of the top 10. But going from our standings then to our circuit for today, it's none other than the Fuji International Speedway, as we mentioned earlier, and we're going to be running the no chicane layout. That means we only have 14 corners rather than the full 16, and as our drivers make around the circuit located near the town of Oyama in the Sunto district of the Shizuoka Prefecture of Japan, they'll get to experience what it's like to take on perhaps one of the most technical circuits on the Japanese motorsporting calendar. Now the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com brings this to life to some degree, thank you to them for the wonderful simulator, and with it the circuit maps that are provided. For as our drivers make their way down the elongated start-finish straight down towards turn number 1, they'll find themselves breaking down from in excess of 160 miles an hour all the way down to first gear for the opening corner. As they exit out, it's a full throttle blast through the Kinka 2 and up towards Coca-Cola corner turn number 3, where it's all about dropping a gear and chucking the car into the corner and believing in the downforce of the car and the grip of the tyres available and carrying all the speed on through. Then going downhill, it's the charge into turns 4 and 5, combined together and known as 100R, where it's all about hitting the late apex of turn 5. Turn 4 is just the setup for turn 5, and therefore we'll see our drivers take multiple different lines, and we can expect some brilliant battling into 100R. But as they exit, they'll make their way rapidly uphill into the hairpin at turn 6, where they go over the rise and brake downhill into the left-hander, and some early braking could do our drivers well, otherwise they may understeer or just charge off the circuit and have to bring themselves back on eventually. But coming out turn 6, they'll then make their way through the Kinka 7, flat out through 8 and 9, the combination called 300R, and up towards the Dunlop corner turn number 10, and as they come through the fast right-hander, rather than the hairpin that would be there if they were running the full layout, they'll find themselves having to avoid running too wide as to pick up track limit infringements and also potential automated slowdowns and head up the hill for the rest of the elevation change. Now, keeping in mind that the highest point of the circuit is the start finish straight and the lowest point of the circuit is Dunlop corner, we're going to see the elevation change and rise very rapidly indeed as we go up towards turn number 11, a blind apex right-hander, which is all about digging the car into the apex curb. And as our drivers make their way out of 11, they'll need to set themselves up for next bend at turns 12 and 13, where turn 12 is a flying left-hander, which is flat out and really sets up the braking zone for turn 13 into a blind summit apex, a left-hand right-angle corner where you can't actually see the apex curb until you hit it the front left tyre. And as they make their way through the left-hander, it's then uphill into Panic Sonic corner at turn number 14, also known as the corner that has no defined racing line to it. Indeed, you can take that corner any which way you like, and over the years we have seen 2, 3, 4 wide into that corner, and well, how will our drivers get on there as they make their way out of Panasonic corner and charge around to the start finish straight? We'll have to wait and see, but a good exit there could be key to success. But then coming on to our rules for today, let's remind you of the rules, as always we can't go racing without rules. Setup wise, it's a fixed setup series where the setups are provided ahead of each round by the Next Gen Racing administration. Drivers are permitted to change car up to round 5, but will forfeit 50 points in doing so, and we haven't had any car changes logged as of this round. Driver class wise, these shall be finalised as of the conclusion of round number 3, but I'm happy to say there's no driver class changes thus far. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used where everybody is out on the circuit together for the full 20 minutes, and then coming on to the races. The sprint race shall commence by a rolling start within a designated green flag zone. That's essentially the start finish straight. Our drivers have been informed of that, and all of our drivers shall have 1 fast repair available, but if they do accumulate 15 or more instant points, they will have to pop to the pits, and that will be for a drive-through penalty. Feature race-wise, again, it's a rolling start, as it's a tradition of the Next Gen Racing GT3 League, but drivers have 2 fast repairs available, given the fact the race length has multiplied by a factor of 4. Grid order shall be a class reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race. Drivers who did not finish the sprint shall start from the back of their respective class. So putting that into layman's terms, what it means is that we'll see the grid line up as the gold class ahead of the silver class ahead of the bronze class, with approximately a 2 to 5 second gap between each of the classes. Whoever takes the win in their class and the sprint race, they'll start at the very back, albeit behind them. If a driver did not finish the race, they'll be starting right at the back of their defined class, and meanwhile the lowest place finisher who made it to the checker flag in the class, they start at the front of their respective class on the grid for the feature. Now, in terms of drive-through penalties, if our drivers pick up 25 or more instant points, they'll have a drive-through for their accolades, and the drivers are expected to make 1 mandatory pit stop during the feature race, in which fuel must be taken, but changing tyres is entirely optional, and we'll talk a little bit about those tyre changes very shortly and why drivers may be keen on making the tyre change or may not be. But meanwhile, that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. We're here to go racing, and so be it. Let's make our way back to live pictures from circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, and as our drivers make their way on around here with only 2 minutes to go in the final practice session before we do go racing. Well, we can see right now the leading goal driver out there is Stefan Vessels, and well, he was able to take a light to Chris Shorter, his fellow CSA driver last time out, and the CSA blue driver not here today in attendance, but indeed Vessels is here for CSA Pink. And we'd just like to point out, if you have noticed that the attribution or the allocation, we should say, of the CSA drivers. All 7 of them have changed between the teams of pink, blue and green. That's because we did have a little bit of incorrect data on the round 1 broadcast, and we have updated that. And thank you to the CSA guys for pointing that out, but they all should be now shown from their correct teams, as we do see Stefan Vessels making his way through at the Dunlop corner. But as he comes on around here, it's not just about the gold class, as we do see the silver class. Tristan Engelstad, currently your fastest driver out there for Quad Dash Racing in the silvers. He's fastest by, what is that, 1.7 temps compared to Russell Fowler. And we are expecting this race to really, or indeed today's race, is to shake up the field, given the fact that this circuit is a very interesting mix of power and handling, whereas Sebring, you could argue, is a little bit more geared towards handling with some limited power aspects. But as we do see our silver leader here make his way on down towards turn number 1, we then do look to the bronze class, and Sean Scutter's currently parked up in the pit lane for CSA Blue. You can see him there off in the distance in the BMW M4, albeit intermingled in between a Performance Link BMW M4 and also another BMW M4 behind from Crest Autosport. But Sean Scooter there ready and raring to go. But as we then look to Lee Horn making his way around the Next Gen Racing driver in the silver class, or currently P2 in the silver class championship, and looking at to try and go for the lead today. But as he decides to park up and bring his practice session to a conclusion, and then look to match short of the CSA Racing Green. But as we do say hello to a good number of you in the respective chats, we say hello to GZen High in the Twitch chat first and foremost, as he did say hello first. In fact, it wasn't a hello, it was more of an oh yeah for the absolutely brilliant racing that is to come. We're glad to hear the enthusiasm, GZen High. And we also say hello there in the Twitch chat to Yakatai and also to Paul71. I hope you guys are all doing well. We also say hello in the YouTube chat there to Sunny Bond, also to Pop Tart, also to Alex Meredith, who says this is an awesome track for racing. It should be very interesting. I'm 100% with you on that. And we also say hello there, I do believe, to Aaron Thompson in the Facebook chat, who's tuning on at Mark Sykes. And we also say hello to Michael Price there, and glad to have you with us, Michael, as always. And well, I believe that's everybody we're saying hello to so far. But ladies and gents, I appreciate you've all been absolutely itching to go racing. Well, I can tell you right now, we are in qualifying. Qualifying has just kicked off, 20 minutes overdrive out on circuit, and well, it is going to get crowded very fast out on the Fuji Speedway circuit. And the big question you may be asking right now is, what can we expect in qualifying? Can we expect our drivers to take particular approaches, and also which cars could potentially be the fastest out there? Well, as everybody makes their way on around on their out laps before going on to their first flying laps, already their ideal warm-up laps, if you will, that first flying lap not being anywhere near close to the ideal lap, given the fact you need to get tyre temperature and brake temperature, and these GT3 class cars on the iRacing simulator platform normally do take 2 to 3 laps before they are in the zone. We are expecting the qualifying laps around here to be quite contentious, in the fact our drivers will look to get a banker lap on the board as soon as possible, where they do just do the lap under their own steam. But really, the name of the game around here is you need to find a toe, and particularly on that start-finish straight, going out of Panasonic corner at turn number 14 all the way down towards turn number 1, for the simple reason you can gain the best part of half a second, if not more, if you are in the slipstream all the way down there. And I would imagine that some drivers, particularly if they're part of a team where they've got multiple drivers out on the circuit, will try and group themselves together. No such fortune for Stefan Albanese Senior, as we do see the DRS Eastwood driver in the number 45 making his way on around there, albeit I think he'll try and huddle up to some other cars as they make the way on through. And therefore we are going to expect on that circuit map on the top right corner of your screen that things are going to be very closely focused towards all the drivers trying to stay together and stay in a line. But as they make their way on around and up toward the turn at number 14, well, everybody right now getting themselves comfortably set. And you can see already there is Albanese Senior backing himself up, trying to find the right place in the train. And a lot of drivers going for where's the lap in the toe nice and early, as we do look to made for racing. So Jack Barker making his way through Dunlop corner there. And Jack Barker currently away on vacation, interestingly enough. I had the opportunity to catch up with him in the build-up to tonight, and saying to me that he's decided to take his racing gear with him, albeit he wasn't able to take his sim rig with him, so he's actually racing on a PlayStation 5 controller, so he's not going to be quite necessarily on the pace that he demonstrated at Sebring, but he's still going to go for it. And his target today is just to get to the end of each race without making a major mistake and get some points on the board. Well, you can tell the dedication there from the British driver in the fact he's not going to take a rest. He's going to give it everything as he makes his way onto his first flying lap in the Mercedes-AMG Evo 2020 machine. And that nicely brings me on to which cars can we expect to go well around here. We're looking at one, the Mercedes-AMG, an absolute monster on the straights with his V8 engine and packing over 6 litres of performance as he makes his way on down towards turn number 1. I do believe it's 6.3 litres exactly. And as he comes down into the braking zone here, the Mercedes, known for its straight line acceleration and top end speed, not as well known, however, for its low speed handling. So this car could really struggle in the last sector lap coming out of Dunlop corner and making its way uphill through next bend. Meanwhile, other cars we are expecting to go well here include the BMW M4. and this has been demonstrated by Jonathan Cook right now in the 144 for Performance Link Esports. He makes his way up through nets behind, which is the KFM yellow machine. I do believe that is the number 94 car of none other than Akram Tanoon, as they make the way through turn number 13 up towards 14. And the BMW M4, known as a bit of a straight line machine, but also at the same time it's a very stable platform. Can be a little bit weak on the brakes, however, but otherwise a good all-rounder with a straight line inclination. And that does mean our BMW M4 drivers will feel as though they've got a great opportunity to do well here today. And the other car that we're expecting could go quite potentially strongly here is the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, but there's an interesting quandary in regards to this car. It does very well with regards to handling, but its tyre wear, however, is one of its weaker points, and we are expecting that rear tyre wear to really catch the car out on the longer stints in the feature race going through the final sector. However, where this car is a little bit of an oddball is in the fact that its straight line acceleration is one of the weaker components out there, but at the same time, if this car is in a tow and it goes down at start-finish straight, it does have one of the highest top speeds in the tow out of all the cars, so therefore the Ferrari drivers could really come alive in the race, or if they're able to get a slipstream in this qualifying session, they could find themselves leaping right up the standings. But as most of our drivers now made the way onto their second flying laps and heading on around, we do say hello to Catherine Meredith in the YouTube chat. Just looking forward to the race and glad to have you join us, Catherine. And well, speaking of the Meredith family, we do have Meredith Racing's John Meredith making his way up towards turn number 11 here, making his debut today in Season 4 of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League. And as he heads up towards turn number 13 right now, bringing out the Porsche 992, a very popular car with its recent introduction to the iRacing platform. Very strong car at the moment based on the current balance of performance. And as he makes his way up through Panasonic corner, keeping it nice and tight to the apex there, and the Porsche will go very well in the handling sections, particularly what is the second and third major sectors of the lap. So as he makes his way through what is the left hand of Coca-Cola at turn number 3, and then going all the way through to the end of the lap at Panasonic corner, that's where we should see the Porsche really shine. But you can see they're on the straight having a little bit of a moment there with one of the NXTGEN Racing red cars deciding to try and take the tow. That's the number 85 that's trying to come on through, as Meredith does back off and backs off almost into the path of the number 9 there. A little bit of a back and forth. Well, that's going to be unfortunate with the number 9 being piloted by, I do believe, I'm trying to just get the number of the driver there, that's Miguel Gutierrez Garcia, who in the end up feels as I think he was impeded a little bit, but Meredith just trying to get out of the way as best he could. And then we did see the NXTGEN Racing red machine make his way on as Meredith losing the rear there. Very unfortunate, but gets the car stopped just in time and make sure it doesn't go into also. It won't be too much of a repair work there to the car, and it's very easy to make a mistake out of turn number 3 for the simple reason the apex curve there is quite one where you want to be aggressive, but it's the exit curve which catches so many drivers out in the fact there is a small revetment ditch in it in order to enable water to flow downhill. But if a wheel or a tyre does get caught in that ditch and you're trying to get the power down, it can unsettle the rear of the car quite rapidly. But we've not just got John Meredith joining us on the grid today, we've also got a new driver in the silver class joining us today, and it's one of the Performance Link Esports guys. You've just looked at Russell Fowler, and here is your new debutant for Performance Link Esports. It's Tom Bingham as he makes his way out the final corner and onto the start finish straight. And as he charges his way down towards turn number 1, it's appropriate time for us to ride on board the newcomer and take you around for a lap of the Fuji International Speedway no chicane layout. He charges across the line here, and while BMW M4 drives, they'll delay that upshift to 6th gear as long as possible. 6th gear being one of the weaker aspects of the BMW M4. All the power's in 5th gear as he makes way into the brake. It's only a brake in about 110 metres from the corner. Apex goes a bit too deep, and in fact Bingham decides to straight line the lap on, and that's going to be an aborted lap there for Bingham, so I think he will get ready to go again very shortly. But in the meantime, what we can do is look to one of our other drivers getting set to go onto a lap, and we can ride on board with that. But as he makes his way up the hill towards turn number 14 and out of it, we'll head on to the start finish straight. We're going to jump aboard with Matt Shorter, or is he coming into the pit lane? In fact, I think he is going into the pit lane, so he's going to curtail our desire to want to get a lap on board with him. What about Stefan Metzels? Well, he's making his way into the pit lane as well. We just picked the wrong time to try and get a lap on board with our drivers, but we will get a lap on board with Stefan Albanese Senior as we jump aboard with the number 45 driver as he charges down towards turn at number 1 in the Porsche 992. Now breaking his way down at what is there, 163 miles an hour into the apex and up the inside of John Meredith there. You'd think he was overtaking him for race position. And as he powers his way out of turn number 2 and up towards 3, demonstrating the strength of the brakes there. And then Coca-Cola looks to his right for the brake marker. It's the 50 board, chucks it down a gear in 4th gear. Now coming on through the left and onwards towards 100R. Keep it nice and tight initially, let the car tighten up and then roll out. We'll bring it back towards the apex to turn number 5, 4th gear all the way. Then immediately bring the car to the right side to brake into the turn 6 hairpin. Breaking about 75 meters from corner apex to respect the downhill gradient as he comes out flat out on the throttle here, going out the Kinker 7 and now down through 300R up towards the Dunlop corner. But we should be shooting downwards as he goes down towards the lowest point of the circuit in terms of net elevation. Coming into the fast right hand, braking 100 metres from the corner apex, down 2 gears to third, powers out and up the hill towards turn number 11. He's got a little bit of traffic in front. This may cause him to come unstuck as he comes for 11, down to second gear, brings the car onto the exit curve, which acts as the apex curve for turn 12, then braking into next bend, down to second gear, goes a bit deep, then misses the apex curve. Now backing this lap off slightly, his hands been compromised, and going into Panasonic goes as deep as possible here to set up the run onto the start-finish straight to go onto a fresh lap as Albanese charges wound down. That is an on-board lap with the DRS eSports driver in the silver class as he makes his way onwards. Now we have had a question there from one of you in the YouTube chat from Pop-Tart asking, can somebody explain to me what these gold, silver, bronze items mean with regards to the class? Well, these are 3 driver classes for the uninitiated. The gold class of drivers are our highest pace drivers in terms of you can expect those are the pros, if you will, on the grid. Meanwhile, our silver class drivers are the equivalent of pro-ams and our bronze class drivers are the equivalent of ams. And that's how we differentiate between our drivers. And it also means that not all of our drivers are competing in a single overall drivers championship. They're competing in 3 separate drivers championships where they battle one another in their classes. And there are no extra points for battling with a driver of another class, and therefore it gives everybody something to fight for over the course of a full season's championship. Indeed, if you look to official real world series such as the Fanatec GT World Challenge Endurance Series, you'll see the driver splits, but there's even more classes there, albeit we're not going to go into those and boggle your brain with those. Indeed, I struggle sometimes to read the colour charts for official series such as that, but here we do have gold, silver and bronze. But with regards to our teams championship, we do have teams that have drivers in multiple classes, if you will, and they score teams points based on where they finish in class. But as we do look to our fastest drivers out there, as we hit the 10-minute mark of this qualifying session, still 10 minutes to go, we do have there our bronze leader of Nigel Stock, currently on and out lap and going on to an all-new lap. And as he heads down towards turn number 1, we'll get on board here. In fact, we won't get on board with Stock as he decides he's going to make his way into the pit lane as well. And the Crystal Autosport driver deciding there to park up and go to the pit. So I'm not sure what he wants to quite do, but he's currently on pole in the bronze car provisional by 2 tenths ahead of this man, Daniel Fritz, who's got it quite wrong there for Whiskey Runners Racing, coming out to next bend. Being everybody running wide there intentionally to try and steer clear of drivers who want fast laps, but also at the same time find themselves in the right line of cars as Fritz turns in. Barker's on the inside there, and as they come through, Fritz having to give the space as Barker having to compromise his exit line, and will everybody right now chipping over one another's proverbial toes as they make their way onwards towards turn number 1, and Barker backing off there as now Fritz tries to go. Meanwhile, Jordan Baybois moves up to P3 in the bronze class for 36.037. That puts him exactly 2 tenths of the Nigel Stock's pole time in terms of taking it on. But as he makes his way through turn 1, the Ferrari 488 Evo driver right now definitely giving it everything he's got. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 3, doing everything right. But as we do see there, our silver positions right now, and well, the fastest driver in the silver class is not this man of Russell Fowler. He's currently P3. It is Sergio Gonzalez, who's the fastest silver driver, and in the Ferrari 488 Evo, as he heads up on a 35.269, he is the best part of 700 faster than Tristan Engelstad, with then Russell Fowler a further, well, he's 1.5 tenths behind, so Gonzalez really starting finding some time out there, and also I suspect find a little bit of toe, and it's all coming together for the number 55 driver from KFM Motorsport Yellow. But as he heads down the start finish straight here, building up onto another lap, then do look to the gold class, and your fastest driver out there right now is Stefan Vessels. He's on a 34.539, and that is 1.5 tenths faster, just a little bit more compared to second place man Gaz Williams. And speaking of Gaz Williams, here is the Porsche 992 driver from NXTGEN Racing as he makes his way up the hill towards turn number 11. And going on through the right hand here, Williams get himself comfortably set, and it's pretty much double the deficit then to the next driver in the class, Miguel Gutierrez Garcia, who is at P3 and over 3.5 tenths off the pole time set by Vessels provisionally, albeit we still have quite a bit of time left in this qualifying session, and everybody's still trying to find some more time. As they head on around here, we do look at the overall standings, and this goes to show you the top 35 on the grid. Keep in mind, of course, that all the classes will line up intermingled together in the sprint race, and we can see right now the top 6 are all gold drives, and then you do have the top 2 silver drives, P7, P8, which is going to make things quite a bit of a scramble there inside the top 10, with Adam Delman and Matt Shaw to the 2 gold drives completing your top 10 overall. Meanwhile, an update on the bronze class, how they fit into the wider field. We can see Nigel Stock starting P20 there. Things finish as they currently stand. He's going to have Jordan Baywatt and Daniel Fritz immediately behind him. So the bronze class quite closely clustered together today, and well, with that in mind, it does mean that our classes are looking to really be just about right in terms of where drivers have been assigned. Remember, we did talk about earlier the fact that the assignments are provisional and can be adjusted up to the end of round number 3, but it does look as though here the golds are for the most part qualifying ahead of the silvers, and the silvers qualifying mostly ahead of the bronzes, so this should set us up for an absolutely classic race at Fuji, and it will mean we'll see a lot of class battling action from lights out the checker flag in the sprint, and even more so in the feature. But as we do then look back to the class standings here, and again, top 10 in each of the classes. Keep in mind, we've got 35 drivers out on the field, and we've got just over 10 drivers in each of the classes, but you'll see the top 10 as listed there. The drivers who are not quite currently on the pace. In the gold class, for example, it's Quad Dash Racing's Johnny Tahar, as he comes through turn number 6, and really not happy with the exit. There you can see backing off as he comes on through and making his way on down, but as he charges his way onwards towards turn number 11, well, in turn number 10, in fact, going into Dunlop corner, well, there, backing off once again and trying to find himself a bit of space, and well, with that in mind, he's on an outlap as well, so this really is about getting himself set up, and only 6 minutes remaining for Tahar to try and find some time out there. He'll want to be a lot further up the order in the gold class rather than P11 on the grid over on P9 in class, for the simple reason he's then going to have to really go for it in order to catch up to the likes of Gavan Gardener, Garcia, Williams and Vessels will be starting on the front 2 rows of the grid. Conversely, meanwhile, we do have a bit further down the order in the silver class. He is starting at potentially P11 in silver right now is David Camano, as we see at the Lamborghini Huracan Evo driver heading down towards turn number 1, going on to another lap as he charges there with the Audi V10 engine in the back of the machine. The Audi V10 engine being retired in terms of the official Audi R8 GT3 racing cars at the end of this year. The official Audi teams, the factory teams, albeit customer teams still racing in the world of real-world motorsport going into 2024. But right now, as we do see the Italian machine powered by German engineering going on through turns 1 and 2. Well, it is a difficult day for Camano in qualifying, but can he find a little bit more time there? He is only, to be fair, 4 tenths off the pole, and 4 tenths doesn't sound like much, but it is to these guys everything. It is a lifetime. But as he heads up towards turn number 6 and 7, will get himself ready very shortly as he rolls off turn 5. A nice run there for Camano, really hooking it up onto the rotation and coming out to the left-hand hairpin now. It is looking to be a faster lap from the number 10 driver as he heads down the hill towards the Dunlop corner. And we're going to stay with this lap all the way through to conclusion. And well, thus far he has not improved in Sector 1. What about in Sector 2? We are waiting for an update on his lap time here as he heads towards the line for Sector 2. Does not improve in Sector 2 either, so if he is going to improve it, it's all going to be in the final sector. But Camano is pushing this hard as he heads up through next bend into the apex now. As he comes through there, goes a bit deep and very late rotation. You can see the car almost over-rotating there on the spot, as I think he dropped from second, down from third to second gear. And as he comes through Panasonic corner, rolling off the apex here onto the start-finish straight. Well, it's been a difficult lap thus far. Sectors 1 and 2 not been improving. What's it going to be for Camano as he heads to the line now? He's only a couple hundred meters away from seeing whether he's able to get better time on the board. And in fact, it is not an improvement there for Camano. He's going to have to go again. 4 minutes on the clock plus overtime now. And well, with that in mind, we have had a couple of drivers decide to make their way into the pit lane, including Gaz Williams. He's currently parked up in the pits, and you can see the Porsche 992 NXTGEN Racing driver deciding not to go out once more. I think he feels as though he's got it done. But meanwhile, in a surprise turn, Sean Scooter in the bronze class has moved up into original pole. He's moved up into what is there, a 35.405. That's only 1.5 tenths off the silver pole time. And well, to put it in perspective, right now it's going to be Scooter who will be starting P12 on the overall grid. He's going to be well in amongst the silvers and the golds, leaving a good number of his peers behind. And Daniel Fritz, who's the second place bronze driver, who's 2 tenths off of him, plus of over 200s. Well, Fritz will right now be starting P18 on the grid. So it goes to show you that one good lap can be all the difference you need. As we show you those overall standings once again, as we're getting closer to the pinch point now of this qualifying session, and Scooter absolutely flying the BMW M4 for CSA. But as he comes on through Dunlop corner, will he be able to go a bit faster? He won't have that lap in his bag anymore. That will be an invalidate lap as he did run wide. But meanwhile, Gavan Gardener goes P3 there for NXTGEN Racing Pink with 34.885. That's in the overall and gold categories as he comes down into turn 1. And will Gaz Williams has left the pit lane to go on to an out lap. So Williams will feel as though he can get one more lap in as a minimum. But as everybody heads on around here, 9, the time is running out. It's trickling down. We do look to Jonathan Cook, the BMW M4 driver, who's getting himself set to go onto what we suspect will be his penultimate qualifying lap as he steers clear and tries to give himself as much space as possible. And I did have the opportunity to catch up with the Performance Link Esports driver going into tonight with regards to his faults around number 2, and he was saying that after what he thought was a really good round at Sebring in the season opener, he's looking forward to getting onto the track at Fuji, although he's not a big fan of this circuit. He was delighted with his pace at Sebring and had some really good battles and was over the moon with the fact he managed to come home at P2 in terms of the championship standings, albeit P3 on result count, but P2 jointly if you take his points in consideration with Gardener's points. And now his aim is to go one step further this time round and really go for the win. How he does feel as though there's some fierce competition, and he does not think his pace at Fuji is quite as good as Sebring, so therefore he's going to absolutely keep his head down and just focus on the race in hand. And he was saying that the boss of the team at Performance Link Esports, that's Tom Bingham, is joined the team for Fuji onwards, so he does need to keep impressing the boss in order to maintain his contract with the team. Well, hopefully we're not going to see anything like the recent escapades in Formula 1 with regards to Nick De Vries being given the removal from AlphaTauri and Daniel Ricciardo returning, but at the same time here it is a cutthroat business in the real world of motorsport, but I think Performance Link Esports may not be as cutthroat as that. And with Tom Bingham out of the circuit right now, trying to also find his lap time out there, and he's down in P22 overall. But we show you the class standings once again now as our drivers continue the way on around here. Do see Willis Cook rolling his way up the hill through Nets Bend and going all the way to the top of the hill right now to go into one more lap. But meanwhile, in P7 in the silver class was David Camano, but he's come into the pit lane after what was looking to be an improving lap considerably. So he's decided perhaps it was an invalidated lap, and we don't know about the invalidation, but Camano's not going to prove it. He'll be starting P7 silver, but as Cook makes his way to the timeline, 20 seconds to go. But whoever crosses the line before the clock strikes 20 minutes, they will be permitted to finish that final qualifying lap. He charges on down, and meanwhile Stefan Vessels, he's gone provisional at pole previously with 34.394. That's golden overall, and Vessels right now is on an even faster lap. He's gone purple in sectors 1 and 2. Nobody else is matching this, and as the clock strikes 20 minutes, what's Vessels going to be able to do here as he heads towards the timeline? Well, if he's going to go even faster, it's going to give him more time to play with Williams right now 3 tenths off his pole time. And as Vessels makes his way to the timeline, this is a look at a sensational lap, and what's it going to be? Well, for Vessels, it is a 34.144. That's an improvement by 2 tenths, and Vessels absolutely decimating the field at the very front in the gold class. But as our drivers here come to close, well, that's going to be Gutierrez Garcia coming his way into the pit lane. So he's decided enough's enough. He can't improve from P4 on the grid. We're going to see Daniel Fritz coming on down now as he makes his way towards the timeline. The Whiskey Runners racing right into the pit line, however, so therefore he's going to be coming off of a lap. We then do have Lee Horn headed on down, and Horn currently P5 silver with only 700 between himself and Fowler P4. Can Horn find a way to improve as Badewell goes P3 in the bronze class off camera? As Horn crosses the line, I don't think it's going to be an improvement here for the next gen racing driver. Indeed, it's not. Matthew does not improve either as the two of them work together. And then we do have, I believe, Jack Barker heading to the timeline. What's it going to be here? He's currently P13 silver. He's at the back of the field at silver class, but pushing on does not improve. And, well, we've also got Nigel Stock heading towards the timeline. I do believe, in fact, Stock's into the pit lane. We'll have to correct that there. And then we do have Alex Rogenbuck coming on in, so he's decided enough's enough. But meanwhile, Jonathan Cook does improve. He goes P5 in gold with 34.932 right at the depth of the session, and that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, it is Stefan Vessels who takes over on gold pole on a 34.144. Silver pole is going to go to Sergio Gonzalez, who will start P9 on your overall grid, and then it will be Sean Scooter who takes bronze pole, and with it P12 on the grid. And, well, what a set of margins in the end. Pole position for Vessels by almost 6 tenths in a class of his own today in qualifying. In the silver class, it was 700ths in the end between Gonzalez and Engelstad, and in the bronze class, Scooter ahead of Fritz by 2 tenths and 200ths. Well, Scooter there laying down a marker, and everybody else will need to respond. But as all of our drivers get set now, we're not too far away from going in to our first race of the day. I think we have got a couple of drivers just on cool-down laps here, including Matthew Addy for NXTGEN Racing the same case as UK. And as he makes his way up through turn number 13, he'll be taken back to the pit lane. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for our first race at Fuji. So as all of our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they line up for the sprint race in round number 2 of the Season 4 of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League. It's Stefan Vessels who takes pole position for CSA Pink, joined on the front row of the grid by Gaz Williams. Behind the Next Gen Racing driver, it's his teammate Gavan Gardener, who starts P3 for Next Gen Racing Pink, and is joined on the second row of the grid by Miguel Gutierrez Garcia. Behind the Spaniard starts off the third row of the grid, it'll be Performance Link Esports' Jonathan Cook, who's joined by Akram Zanoon, the privateer, and then we do have Adam Delwant from Next Gen Racing, who starts on the fourth row of the grid, joined by Quad Dash Racing's Jahani Tahar. Next, Sergio Gonzalez, your silver pole sitter, who starts P9 for KFM Motorsport Yellow on row number 5, and he is joined by Tristan Engelstad for Quad Dash Racing, who completes the top 10, and with it the top 2 for the silvers. Matt Shorter starts best of rest P11 on the 6th row of the grid for CSA Green, joined by his rival sister teammate of Sean Scooter, who's your bronze pole sitter for CSA Blue, starting P12, and then we have starting on the 7th row of the grid Nesta Delavu for KFM Motorsport Yellow, who is joined by Victor Shamara for KFM Motorsport Yellow. The two teammates of two classes, the silver ahead of the gold, and they'll be looking to try and move up through the field as soon as possible. On row number 8, it's Russell Fowler for Performance Link Esports, joined by Lee Horn for Next Gen Racing. And then we have Matthew Addy, who starts off the 9th row of the grid at P17 ahead of Daniel Fritz, Whiskey Runners Racing, and taking second place in the bronze class. Stefan Albanese Senior starts P19 on the 10th row of the grid for DRS Esports, and is joined by David Camano, who completes your top 20 for KFM Motorsport Red. And then we do have starting at P21 Alfonso Marin for KFM Motorsport Red, ahead of Jordan Baybois on the what is the 11th row of the grid, the privateer. Now on row number 12, we have Tom Bingham for Performance Link Esports, who is joined by Nigel Stott for Crest Autosport. Now on row number 13, it's Paul Scott for Next Gen Racing, joined by Elwin Sykes for CSA Green, followed up on by Mark Sykes for Next Gen Racing, and Ben Benniwer for Crest Autosport. There on your 14th row. Now on row number 15, to complete your top 30, it's FR20 Sim Racing's Craig Tillerston and Davide Favo for CSA Blue. Then on row number 16, starting P31, it's Mayfair Racing's Jack Barker, joined by Alex Rogenbach, who starts P32. On row number 17, our final full row of the grid is Jorge Santos and Wesley Lewin, the two bronze drivers, one a privateer, the other for CSA Pink. And then last but not least, starting P35, on row number 18, it's Meredith Racing's John Meredith, who starts there by his lonesome, but 9, there's plenty of places to be gained as the racing goes on. As our drivers make their way up the hill on this partial formation lap, we are now only moments away from green flag racing, ladies and gentlemen. And well, as the safety car will very shortly peel its way over to the pit lane on the exit of the final corner, it's the Stefan Vessels to take us away for what is going to be 20 minutes of quick-fire racing action in the sprint race at Fuji International Speedway. But the question is, who's going to be the winner in the drag race down towards turn number 1? And after that, who can keep their cool, calm and collectedness in order to make the way to victory? Well, let's wait and see. Let's lights down, away we go for the sprint race at Fuji as Vessels gets a good start off the line, but look at Gaz Williams on the left end, on the right hand side of your picture. As they come down to the braking zone, Vessels will cover off the inside as much as possible, and under braking, Williams goes as late as he can on the brakes, goes all the way around the outside, and as they come on through, Williams takes the lead in this race. It's going to be a drag race up towards turn number 3, but as they all come charging on out right now, you see further behind plenty of drivers, they're all coming into the scatter as they make their way into Coca-Cola corner, but Williams does inch ahead of Vessels. Meanwhile, behind Jonathan Cook on the inside there versus Miguel Gutierrez Garcia, still side by side as they come through 100R, side by side in the goal battle for P5. But as they come out, they do it and into the rise. It's going to be Cook who's on the inside now into the hairpin. Garcia tries to come back, but Cook goes forceful under braking and takes the place. Further behind, Sergio Gonzalez has gained multiple places in the start. Your silver class leaders up to P7. Matt Shorter behind. We've got a car round there in the rearview picture. That is Daniel Fritz, who was your second place bronze driver. But meanwhile, it's absolutely charged astern here for Jordan Baybois, who's taking the bronze lead in all the battling on the opening a couple of corners, and right now battle side by side with what is there, I do believe, Davide Favo, as meanwhile off the road goes Tom Bingham. He's been sent wide at Dunlop corner. You can see Stefan Albanese flashing his lights there, I believe, to try and warn drivers about what's happened, but as they make their way up towards the next bend, Jordan Baybois currently holding on to lead the bronze class, Davide Favo behind, and we see Stefan Albanese Senior sandwich himself between the two of them as they make their way towards Panasonic corner. But coming up the hill, meanwhile already into the braking zone for the final turn of the open lap of this race. Matthew Addy right now holding on to P7 ahead of Ben Benniwer in the silver class as they make the way on down and charging on towards turn number 1. They go once again. Well, Addy's clear, but meanwhile Baybois has said no, I want more, and as they charge their way onwards towards lap number 2, it's Baybois on the left of your picture. Meanwhile, it's going to be what is there, Benniwer on the right of your picture. They turn around
around and flip the other way. It's the BMW 6-cylinder versus the Ferrari V8 Babel on the inside. He's got the overspeed here and he'll have the brakes as well. I believe he will. Goes all in under braking. This is the P17 overall, and Babel takes the position initially here, but still Bennyworth there on the outside. But I think he will get it done as Babel comes down for the King of 2. It's not over yet, and meanwhile just up the road from them we have had Lee Hall make a move on Russell Fowler, but Bennyworth goes all into turn 3 and overcommits to the corner, and Babel will take the position as Bennyworth rejoins, and Stefan Albanese Senior will now come at him in the run through 100R. But as they make the way uphill towards the hairpin, meanwhile behind them Davide Favo and Nigel Stott now exchanging blows and information as they come down into left-hander. You can see Favo here with the pressure on from behind him as Stott there tries to get on the power early and take a tighter exit, but oversteer kicks in and Stott loses the place as Paul Scott now jumps in between the two bronze battlers for second place in the class. Meanwhile, Russell Fowler here making his way up towards P4 in the silver class, so Fonsley Eastwood's getting past Alfonso Marin, who went overly deep there, Dunlop at turn number 10, and also do believe Nesta De La Fou got it wrong at the corner as well. But as they make the way up towards nets right now, Kevin Motorsport Yellow definitely struggling in the early stages of this race with a good number of their drivers, but other drivers making headway and progress by comparison. But heading in towards Panasonic corner, everything calms down for a brief moment as Bennyworth here still side by side with what is there. I do believe Paul Scott for position. In fact, that's not Paul Scott, that is Davide Favo, the Audi. Paul Scott's coming up behind right now in the Porsche 992, and as they head onto the start finish straight, it's going to be 3 wide here. Paul Scott trying to effect he gained P9 in the silver class and also to clear Favo. Favo wants to stay ahead of the pair of them, but it's a drag race all the way down. You can see the Audi gradually lose out the straight line stakes here. The one weakness of the Audi, much like the Porsche, is the straight line speed as they head down to the brakes. Well, now we have got Bennyworth cutting across the cover of Scott. He also covered Favo in the process, but Scott goes in, tap on the rear of Bennyworth's car, and Scott then gets the car stopped, albeit with some assistance to the rear bumper of Bennyworth's car. They clear Favo, and here comes Nigel Stock, as Stock trying to go around the outside here of Favo, trying to capitalise on where his Crystal Motorsport teammates been able to keep Favo at bay, and Nigel Stock moves up into P2 of the bronze car. Some great teamwork there. I think a bit unexpected between the two drivers, but still they made it work, and Nigel Stock moves up into second place in bronze. But as they come up towards turn number 6, meanwhile further behind Mark Sykes here trying to make some progress versus Elwin Sykes. The two of them not related, but they share the same surname. A running joke between the two of them ever since they met one another on the virtual grid. And as they make their way out of turn 6 and 7, we jump on board here from the NXTGEN Racing driver as he comes down towards turn number 10. Now the Ferrari here having to really try and make some headway early on in this race. He comes down to the braking zone, gets very close to the back of Elwin Sykes' car, and I think a bit of dirty air, they're just unsettling the front end of the 666 machine. As Tillotson has gone up the inside of him, you'll see Tillotson now taking the place off, and there is Tillotson going in for the move at turn number 11, gets it done, and Sykes just out-braking himself into Dunlop, and therefore paying the price as they come through. The FR20 sim racing driver Tillotson has made some of the biggest gains in the bronze class thus far, but Sykes trying to come back at his fellow Ferrari driver as he goes deep intentionally to try and set up a cutback. Tillotson covers it off by parking the car on the apex, and as they make their way out to the final corner, drag race down towards turn 1 this time. Ferrari and Ferrari, Jack Barker behind in the Mercedes, and as they head all the way through, up through the gearbox they go. Well, Sykes inching closer and closer. It's literally going to be 100 every couple hundred metres. The simple reason that Tillotson has got the toe of Elwin Sykes in front. Will Mark Sykes here go for the move under braking? If he does, it's going to be bold. He is going to go all in for it here. Tillotson leaves the door open, but can Sykes get fully in? He tries to get a nose in. I think he does, and as they make the way on through, now on towards Coca-Cola, well, Tillotson is just going to close it up as best he possibly can and make sure there's no way through. But whilst all this plays out, meanwhile, we have had some instants early on in this race, which we'll take a look back at very shortly. But right now, Russell Fowler having to fend off the battle for P3 in the silver class. He's holding on to the aforementioned position, albeit Lee Horn and Alfonso Marin behind as they come down through 100R. Russell Fowler right now trying to make some steam and progress, but you can see there, it is going to be Marin versus Horn. Marin looking around the outside. It's a Dunlop and it's contact with Horn. Now, did Horn come across Marin, or did Marin come across the two? Well, I think Alfonso Marin there, based on the camera angle we had, seems to be running out of road. I think Horn may have just crept the steering wheel to the left a little bit, but again, that's what we saw from our camera. I'm not a steward at the end of the day. We're in the commentary booth for a good reason, and therefore Marin right now I think he's just going to press on, but Lee Horn will not be too pleased about that one. But as the Gavan Motorsport red driver makes his way through turn number 14, he does pick up P4 in the silver class with Matthew Addy just behind him as they make their way onto another lap. And well, with that in mind, we take a look back at some instances that happened on lap number 2 much early in the race. But before we do that, we take a look back at the race start and what happened when we did go green flag racing, and particularly battling the drivers on the open lap. But we do have to try to get a look back of what was the battle at the very beginning under green flag racing, and here is the replay. was we did go racing, and we in particular now take a look to slightly behind the leaders. We did focus a lot on the front four cars as they made the way underway down into turn number 1. And looking to the blink camera here, it did get very close between the drivers, as we can see Tristan Engelstad a bit further back, and as everyone came down 4-5 wide, but most drivers, in fact, as we did see a quite full wide there with Lee Horn getting into the mix, but everybody survived in the opening corner very well, and well, we did see multiple 3 wides, 1 4 wide, and everybody pulling it off. Great racing between our drivers. We take another look back at that race start, and in particular we do take a look from the perspective of Lee Horn as he made his way up to speed here with green flag. Great start from Lee Horn as well as he got the launch there. Now this is absolutely bold at racing from Lee Horn. He finds himself on the outside, and I don't think he's going to realise this. He's in a 4 wide effect as he comes into apex. Outbrakes the CSA car in front, but has to go very deep here, and well, you can see there the CSA car goes back, and that's when he does leave the 4 wide, but manages to survive it as they all went 3 wide out to turn 1 and up towards turn number 3. And well, what brilliant racing to start off the day. And as we then look to a little bit later on our open, that's all good. It's been on the CSA cars getting it very wrong there. We do take a look what happened to David Camano on the open lap. And this was in the run into turn number 3 for Kevin Motorsports Red's driver in the Lamborghini, getting close and losing the rear of the car there behind Matthew Addy, spinning a bit of contact with one of the Ferraris, and I believe also John Meredith getting caught out there with a couple other cars being turned around, and that was very unfortunate for Camano. And on lap number 2 we did have an incident as well, which involved Sean Scooter, and this was in the run down towards turn number 1. Scooter being involved in that incident at turn 3 that we saw briefly on the open lap. Bannon here with John Meredith under braking, Scooter go down the outside, Meredith comes in hot, and well, the two of them coming together there, and well, I think Meredith just missed his braking point and carried a bit too much speed. But that was the opening instance, ladies and gentlemen, as we return to your live pictures. We don't want to be in replays for eternity in this race. We still got more racing to go, and as Alfonso Marin continues to make progress here in P4 in the silver class, we has got behind him Jordan Bayboy, your bronze leader, as they make the way down through 100R. But things have calmed down to a turn at the moment. But one driver who is not calming down is CSA Blues Sean Scooter, and started on pole in the bronze class, and now trying to recover as best he can. He goes up the outside there of what is Jorge Santos and takes P6 of the bronze class, still trying to make as much headway as he can. He's got time to do so, to be fair, and it's 21 seconds to Jordan Bayboy, the class leader, but between Scooter and Tillotson in P2 it's 13 seconds, and Scooter does have the pace to potentially close that down if things carry on as they stand, albeit Tillotson may be a very optimistic reach, but at the end of the day Scooter's going to throw everything at this for the simple reason he's got nothing to lose right now, and he'll want every single point he can. Going up towards Nets Bend. His next target will be Nigel Stock, 1.6 seconds up the road from him as he clears the apex of Nets, and already up into turn 14. In fact, I think Stock's struggling as that gap has come down quite significantly over the space of 2 corners. The gap now standing at 1.3 seconds. Scooter is absolutely flying, and where it is to be respected by the bronze pole sitter, but at the same time, to be attacking with this pace right now is a sign the South African driver really has got all his ducks lined up, and therefore is feeling confident with the car as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. But as he does, we look ahead to further up the road. We look to Gianni Tahar, the Quad Dash Racing driver, who right now has got teammate in the silver class of Tristan Engelstad behind, and Engelstad P2 in the silver class, where he started the race from. Meanwhile, Gianni Tahar P8 in the gold class, where he started the race from as well. So neither driver has really made too much progress, and the only real bit of progress to note is that Tahar has lost a place overall, albeit not in class since the start. As they make the way up the hill towards next bend shortly, going for 11 first. Well, I think that these two drivers will all be thinking about the fact, will they be impeding one another if they stay in this formation? Do they need to swap, or do they stay as they are? Of course, it's a tricky one there. As a team, well, you all want to try and work together as best as possible, but at the same time, there is something on a little bit of a personal level when you do have to potentially step aside for your teammate, albeit given the fact that both racing separate classes, it may not feel as personal in that regard. As they make the way down the start of the straight, still 9 minutes remaining as they charge away onto lap number 8. We are expecting approximately another 5 to 6 laps to unfold here before all racing is said and done. And as they head down into the braking zone, all set. Coming all the way down now, and you can see there Tahar pulling over and letting what is their Engelstad go, and Engelstad right now taking the place, and therefore the two of them have made the swap, and I think it's a good time swap, as meanwhile fastest man in the bronze class goes purple there. Jordan Bayboy, your class leader, now 9 seconds clear of Tillotson and just charging off into distance. I mean, he's been aided a little bit by the toe of with Alfonso Marin in front, but still, to put that lap together, it goes to show you just how hard Bayboy is pushing, as we have had an incident for Jorge Santos further down the order. He's now down in P9 in the bronze class, P28 overall. But as in fact, Sean Scudder goes purple in the bronze class, and he goes purple on a 35.96. We see him making his way out of turn 1. The CSA Blue driver definitely closing down Nigel Stock and doing everything he can in order to try and rectify what happened at the start of the race and go for the podium, or a minimum of a top 5, if you will. As he heads on down through 100R right now, Nigel Stock will be very wary of the fact that he's got another BMW approaching close behind, and it's one that's not going to take any prisoners when all is said and done, as they head in to the hairpin, but rolling on through. And meanwhile, we look from them to what is Jonathan Cook in P4 in the gold class, and Cook has been passed quite recently for that position by Akram Zanoon, and we get to take a look back very shortly exactly how the move was made by Akram Zanoon for P3 in the class. And well, in fact, it was a move made quite early on in the race, so we did have a little bit of a latency issue, which made it look as though Zanoon had lost the place to Cook, or Cook lost the place to Zanoon, so therefore the overtake happening much earlier than anticipated. But as our drivers make their way down to the braking zone here for turn number 1, Cook under pressure from Garcia, and Gutierrez Garcia thinking about the move, can't quite find it at this time, as we ride on board and look back from the rear of Cook's car as they make their way up towards Coca-Cola corner. We're charging in to the left hand here of turn number 3, and you can see Garcia right now has to really balance when he's been in the dirty air of Cook's car versus carrying apex speed. And this is the nasty part of this circuit, with these sweeping corners of the middle section, in the fact that when you are this close, you really do lose that front downforce, and the Porsche is so reliant on its downforce in order to gain its cornering capabilities, plus also the fact engine located over the rear axle, something very specific to the German manufacturer. And as he makes his way down towards Dunlop corner, he'll be feeling all that rotations down the rear end, but the front's not going to bite due to the dirty air, that he can't exploit it. You see there, Garcia losing the apex, missing it by about what was half a metre, and therefore now having to try and find the lap time elsewhere, as Cook's able to open that advantage up, and he's able to double it practically as they head into next bend. And it's those little moments which make the difference between you running behind another driver and you being able to overtake that driver come the end of the race. But as they make their way on to another lap very shortly, will Cook right now doing everything right to hold on to P4 in the gold class. Your leaders have broken away as we look to your overall and gold class leader from CSAP of Stefan Vessels, the number 27 driver from South Africa, still charging on. Gaz Williams 1.7 seconds behind, and he's trying to match Vessels as best he can. But right now, Vessels in a world of his own. Another 2 temps gain, in fact 3 temps gain for Vessels versus Williams. I think Stefan Vessels, with barring a mistake, may have this one in the bag for our first race of the day. Meanwhile, in terms of other battles that are going on, we do have a bit of a growing battle between Tristan Engelstad and Adam Delmont here. Of course, keeping in mind that Engelstad was given the opportunity to pass teammate Johnny Tahar for overall position, and now up the inside of Delmont here. Well, the point being, I think Engelstad feels as though he can hunt down Gonzalez. He just needs to clear Delmont, but Delmont's still giving up as they come through 100R, and as they come to the turn 5 apex, well, Engelstad will try and hold on to the inside into turn 6. He won't necessarily have the brakes, but he does have the inside line, and Delmont here does start to think about letting this go as they make their way out to hairpin and down through 300R they charge. Engelstad will have the straight line speed, but Delmont's there with the toe. The Porsche trying to get back at the Mercedes, but you can just see how strong that Mercedes is under engine power as they come on through Dunlop corner, and Engelstad does make this move count, and that's a critical move with 2 seconds between himself and Sergio Gonzalez, the class leader. And right now Engelstad the faster of the two. Last lap he was 3 tenths faster. We could see a battle on the final lap of this race for the win of the silver class. As they come out of next bend, there is Gonzalez, the KFM Motorsport yellow driver, right now doing everything in his power in the number 55 Ferrari to hold on. He'll be hoping he can stay within a second and match short of the car in front of him to gain the distant toe, but going all the way down towards turn number 1. We do say hello to Eustace there in the YouTube chat, and so many of you enjoying that's in the YouTube chat, but also great to see so many of you in the other chats as well, putting in messages and enjoying the race in action. And with only a quarter of this race remaining plus the final lap, still plenty of battling to unfold, as Gianni Tahar meanwhile trying to make his way past Adam Delmont. This is for gold class position P7 as they come down to turn 1. Tahar goes all in, and the Dutchman right now, you could say the flying Dutchman, as he charges in on the brakes, and as they come out to the opening corner, Delmont sees him coming, tries to cut it back, but as they make their way up towards turn number 3, I think this move is only going one way, and it's going in the favour of the Quad Dash Racing driver as he gets the move done. But Delmont here now has the opportunity to try and come back as they make their way into 4 or 5 at 100R, but again that dirty edge just taking the front end grip of the Porsche 992, and he cannot seem to find a way through. as they make their way in to the braking zone here for the hairpin. But meanwhile, drama further down the order. Craig Tilliston's had a spin at turn number 1. That's dropped him down from P2 in the bronze class to P3. Daniel Fritz has gone through. There is Nigel Stock, Sean Scooter, and Elwin Sykes all coming up behind him for Tilliston right now. This is going to be a heart-in-mouth moment for FR20 Sim Racing for the simple reason they're suddenly under threat of losing out on the podium finish here today in the sprint. But as they come on through 100R, will Nigel Stock doing everything he can to hold off with Scooter after making the pass on Elwin Sykes. But Scooter immediately on the inside there and says, no, you don't make the apex, I'm coming for it instead. And as they make the way out to the old hairpin and up towards turn number 10, well, right now going on to the brakes, coming on down his Stock still ahead, but Scooter definitely showing his fangs and saying, I want that P5, but I want that P3 now that Tilliston's only a second away from us. But I think Stock's got other ideas as we ride on board with Sean Scooter as he goes up the inside to 11. He tries to lunge it in, tries to get Stock to open the steering, but Stock calls his bluff. Tilliston's gone round. This is now a battle for P3 as Tilliston has lost it coming out of turn number 11 and has dropped down to P6. But Sean Scooter here all over the back of Stock as they make their way to braking into Panasonic corner. But it's more about the exit now rather than the entry. For the simple reason he's got 0.92 miles of straight to play with and Stock has got nobody to give him the tow. You can see Nigel Stock there pulling to the inside. He's allowed one significant weave on the straight, and that is for safety reasons and fairness to racing as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Scooter in the tow, building the speed here. It's now 2 tenths halfway down the straight. They've still got a bit more of it to go, and as they look to the brakes, Scooter brings it out to the outside inside here as they go into brake, and he goes all in. It's going to be very late on the brakes, but Stock opens up the steering, gives himself the cutback option as they come through 1 and onwards towards Coca-Cola at 3. Stock gets the nose back ahead here, but Scooter now's got the inside line, and Scooter can really force a move here if he wants to. It will send both of them into a bit of a slow approach, but they give one another the space. Stock loses the rear of the car, so you can see the car struggling for grip on that rear end, and as they come down through 100R, Stock still on the inside, and this is beautiful racing between the two BMW M4s as they head up towards the hairpin at turn 6. Scooter down the outside, Stock gives him the space and misses braking when he understeers deep, and as a result Scooter does move into P3 as they come out to the left hand and now down towards the Dunlop corner they come. But as they do, Scooter has taken P3, he's stilled the door and going all the way into the braking zone. It is Sean Scooter who now moves into a podium position for the bronze class. But as they charge on out here, meanwhile we can see Stock trying to come back as Scooter into turn 11, can't quite find the move as they roll the way through. But while Stock may not be able to find the counter attack, I can tell you that Craig Tilliston has called right back up to this battle. And well, as they make the way on through next bend, they've also got Paul Scott who's a lap down behind them. Scott having an unfortunate early incident which has put him a lap off the order, but going into Panasonic, Tilliston not able to find the bars, and well, we could see a return here between all four drivers going on to what for them is their final lap of racing in the sprint race, for the simple reason they're all within a second of one another. And well, meanwhile it's Sean Scooter who does not have the tow to his advantage. White flag is waving, but I think Scooter's going to be safe versus Stock, given the gap between them is 3 tenths by the time they get to their braking zone. Tilliston, however, may be able to make the move on Elwin Sykes. He's going to lunge for it. He's going all in, and well, the FR20 Sim Racing driver has to back off. He's not got any way through. But as they come on to their final lap, meanwhile we look to drivers who are already halfway through it. Ben Bennyworth here trying to hold off Gavan Gardener for overall position with what is their Lee Horn behind, who wants to come on through, and Bennyworth overdoes it into the hairpin, and he's going to lose the place to Gardner. But also on top of that, he's now going to have Lee Horn baying for a move. But meanwhile we have to look away from them, ladies and gentlemen, for making his way out of the final corner and down the start finish straight in a flawless drive with an absolute dominant pole position. He's going to convert that pole position into victory. Stefan Bessels for CSA Pink takes the win in the sprint race of the day at Fuji Speedway in the gold and overall categories, ahead of Gaz Williams P2, and it will be Akram Zanoon who makes way to P3 ahead of Jonathan Cook P4, Miguel Gutierrez Garcia P5, Matt Shorter comes across line P6, and then Sergio Gonzalez will hold on for a P7 overall, but more importantly the silver win in the sprint for Kevin Motorsport Yellow, ahead of Tristan Engelstad P2 in the silver class, P8 overall, Johnny Tarr P9 ahead of Adam Delman P10, Victor Shimaro P11 ahead of Russell Fallow rounds off your silver class podium, Alfonso Marin P13 ahead of Matthew Addy, and Jordan Baybois makes it another win in GT3 class racing with a bronze class win, P15 overall ahead of Ben Bennyworth, who holds off Lee Horn to line, and it'll be Nestor Delafleur P18 second ahead of Gavan Gardener and Tom Bingham on his debut. P20 overall, P9 in silver class. Daniel Fritz takes P2 in the bronze class ahead of Sean Scudder, who held off Nigel Stock for P3 in the bronze class come the finish. Elwyn Sykes behind him, who held off Craig Tiddleston to line, and it'll be Davide Favo who makes a late charge to the checkered flag for CSA Blue ahead of Alex Rogenbach, and then it'll be Stefan Albanese Senior who makes his way on down towards the checkered flag. P10 in the silver class, what will be P29 overall ahead of Jack Barker, who will come across line P11 silver as he does across line there for Made for Racing, and it'll be David Camano who completes all of our finishes on the lead lap, I do believe. P31 overall, P12 in the silver class. But as our drivers come to take their checkered flags, well, meanwhile we've got one who's already taken his checkered flag and now making his way into the pit lane, already completing his cool down lap, and that goes to show you the pace is delivered here. Stefan Vessel's absolutely untouchable in this first race of the day, and the CSA Pink driver will be very eager to make it 2 out of 2 as he comes on down pit lane. Then in the silver class for Sergio Gonzalez, a great drive from the KFM Motorsport yellow driver, really having to fight hard to keep Tristan Engelstad at bay, but it does look as though the early ground that Gonzalez made on the opening 3 corners gave him the space to keep Engelstad at bay when he did eventually find his way into an attacking position. But keep your eyes out for the Quad Dash Racing driver, that P2 in the silver class. I think he'll be very eager to make it a P1 in the feature race, but his rivalry with Gonzalez definitely now heating up. And meanwhile in the bronze class, a phenomenal drive from Jordan Baybois, who's already made his way back to the pit lane, and for Daniel Fritz, a deserved second spot there on the podium for Whiskey Runners Racing's Australian driver. And well, he may be early hours of the morning for him local time, but I can tell you one thing right now, he's not feeling sleepy, he's feeling very much live in the 31 at Porsche 902 with Sean Scudder just behind him there. And well, for Scudder, a great recovery after what was a pole position very quickly going wrong on turn number 3, but still the number 12 driver making a great comeback. But that was all of our racing for our sprint race today, ladies and gentlemen, and let's take a look through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. Stefan Vessel's taking the overall win for CSA Pink ahead of Gaz Williams P2, the next-gen racing driver, not quite on the pace of Vessels, but at the same time able to outpace at Crimson, who came home at 3rd place and therefore completes your golden overall podium, the privateer. Jonathan Cook P4 for Performance Link Esports ahead of Miguel Garcia. And Miguel Gutierrez Garcia is known in full the privateer. Then Matt Shorts at P6 for CSA Green, 2 seconds ahead of your silver winner Sergio Gonzalez for KFM Motorsport Yellow, who put in an absolutely brilliant opening couple of laps to give himself all the space he needed to hold on for the silver class winner versus a fast charging Tristan Engelstad, who came on 2nd place still at P8 overall for Quad Dash Racing. Just behind him by 2 seconds, teammate from Quad Dash Racing Gianni Tahar P9, then Adam Delmont completing your top 10 for Next Gen Racing. And then Best P11 Victor Chamorro, a difficult race for the KFM Motorsport yellow drive, but known there's plenty of racing to come, and we have seen him so far go stronger in the feature race distance compared to the sprint races, so keep your eyes out for the number 69 driver from Spain. Now we focus on the rest of the notable finishers, including your podium finishers of each of the podiums, and we can see that Russell Fowler in what was P12 overall, but more importantly for the Performance Link Esports driver, a 3rd place in the silver class. And then we look to P15, your bronze winner of Jordan Baybois, the number 64 privateer, absolutely delivering an absolute monstrous demonstration of his performance there in terms of pace and making some early progress, albeit at the cost of Sean Scudder, who had that early instant. And we do have to wonder if Baybois had been able to catch up to Scudder, how the tables would have played out. Coming to the end of the top 20, meanwhile, we can see there Tom Bingham round off your top 20 on his debut for Performance Link Esports in the number 1 car, with Daniel Fritz just missing out on the top 20, but not missing out on a 2nd place on the bronze podium for Whiskey Runners Racing. And then Sean Scudder completing your bronze podium with that recovery drive for CSA Blues driver, albeit he'll be hoping to make it a win in the feature. Then coming to the end of all the drivers who finished on the lead lap, we can see out of our 35 drivers, we did have 31 who made it to the end of the lead lap, including David Camano, who completed your top 31 there for KFM Motorsport Red. Then finishing the lap down, Paul Scott P32 for Next Gen Racing, head of Meredith Races John Meredith, who finished P33. We did have 4 laps down at the finish, Mark Sykes for Next Gen Racing. Here we classified it as a race finisher, as we did see a grand total of 13 laps being turned under race conditions. The only driver who will be classified as a non-finisher will be CSA Pink's Wesley Lewin for that unfortunate retirement 2 laps into the race, but still plenty of racing to come. We'll then come on to the individual class finishing positions. These are the more important ones for our drivers in terms of earning points, and Stefan Vessel's confirmed as your gold winner there for CSA Pink, 3.4 seconds clear of Next Gen Races Gaz Williams, with Akram Zanoon making a late charge to P3, the privateer, and we'll keep your eyes out for him in race number 2. Java Cook P4 for Funsling Esports, not quite able to take a light or a candle to the top three, but at some points battling for a top three spot, and therefore expect him to try and make it work on strategy in our next race of the day. And then Miguel Gutierrez Garcia completing your top five, ahead of Matt Short, Gianni Tahar, Adam Delman, Victor Shimura, and Gavan Gardener. But Gardener having an unfortunate incident late on, dropping him into what was the final spot of the gold finishers. Then going on to what is the silver class, as we do apologise there for the brief glitch on our tower, and we can see that with the silver class, Sergio Gonzalez taking the win for KFM Motorsport Yellow by 1.5 seconds ahead of Quad Dash Races Tristan Engelstad. But again, keep your eyes out for Engelstad in race number 2. His pace is looking absolutely astonishing. And Pornsling Esports is Russell Fowler a further 6 seconds behind, taking the final spot on the podium. Alfonso Marin, P4 there for KFM Motorsport Red, holding off the rest of the field there, ahead of Matthew Addy for NXTGEN Racing with Sam Cases. And then Ben Bennyworth just missing out on the top 5 in P6 by a further 7 seconds, with Lee Horn, Nestor De La Flue, Tom Bingham, and Stefan Albanese, senior, completing your top 10, and Jack Barker, Derek Camano, and Paul Scott completing your standings. Paul Scott finishing a lap down there compared to his peers. Then finally coming on to the bronze class, we can see after 13 laps of racing, over 20 minutes of racing, John Baybois taking the win by 12.5 seconds over Daniel Fritz. The Whiskey Runners Racing driver may not have had the pace compared to Baybois, but he definitely had the consistency to finish P2. And then Sean Scooter completing your top 3 on the podium for CSA Blue. A further half a second behind him, Nigel Stott for Crest Autosport will be a little bit gutted he missed out on a podium in the first race of the day, but 9, his consistency is absolutely showing and paying dividends, with Elwin Sykes completing your top 5 there for CSA Green. And then FR20 Sim Racing's Craig Tillotson with those late mistakes, taking away a podium and finishing P6 instead. David Favo, P7 for CSA Blue, a further what was 11 seconds behind, but 1 second clear of Alex Rogenbuck. The two of them having a great little scrap towards the end. And then Jorge Santos, the last lead lap finisher of the bronze class, P9, the privateer, ahead of John Meredith, who finished 2 laps down for Meredith Racing. 4 laps down, Mark Sykes, best rest P11 for NXTGEN Racing. And then CSA Pink's Wesley Lewin, our sole retiree, 11 laps down, and therefore only able to make 2 laps and classified as a non-finisher. But that concludes our first race of today, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not done with all of our racing yet. Indeed, we've got plenty more racing to come, with our second race of the day, the feature race, 60 minutes in duration, expected to take place as a 9:25 this evening, or to put that in a duration from now's time, in approximately 29 minutes time. But we will be back in approximately 10 to 15 minutes time for the build-up to race number 2. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it, that I can assure you.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to our second race of the day here at the Fuji International Speedway in round 2 of Season 4 of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League, brought to you on the iRacing platform. And what a first race of the day we had. It was thrills and spills up and down the field, but particularly in the silver and bronze classes, we got to see plenty of battle in action. We also saw a battle that came a little bit too late in order to bloom onto our screens, and that was the battle between our race leaders. But still, there's plenty more to come, and our feature race is only approximately another 8 minutes away. Now, you'll notice on our race schedule, we have brought the feature race forward by 10 minutes. It's now anticipated to head to the grid at what will be just before 9:15. So therefore, if you thought you had quite a bit of time before we went racing once again, we do apologise for that, but we are running a little bit ahead of schedule, as sometimes things can go that way. What we can promise you is, as we move ahead of schedule, we are getting all set for more racing action. And well, our drivers right now in a warm-up session before they go racing, and this session has been specifically designed in order to let our drivers take a breather, take a pause, get themselves a drink, have a rest break, and then return to the pit lane and get ready to go racing. It was requested after Season 3, and the fact we used to have what was a 10-minute transition period before we went racing. That's been extended to 15 minutes, and therefore we can oblige our drivers as they get themselves set. And well, one driver feels as though the results didn't go his way and weren't too obliging in our first race of the day, Mark Sykes, who ended up in an unfortunate incident with Elwyn Sykes and also Jack Barker. As I've just had the opportunity to catch up with someone down in the paddock, hearing about the fact there was a bit of contact between them in the early stages of the race, but still they'll all be starting further up the order for the purposes of our feature race, what with the class order reverse grid based on the finishing positions in the sprint. Now, as our drivers all head on around here, we have to keep in mind as well that everybody right now getting gold and set and ready to go. But as we do get ourselves set, we want to say hello to a good number of you we haven't had the chance to say hello to yet, including in the Facebook chat, David Simon, who is asking about getting onto the grid. Well, we're going to tell you a little bit more later on in today's program about how you can be part of the grid at NXTGEN Racing, how you can compete in any of our series if you are interested. But there are plenty of opportunities to do so. We are running series on a weekly basis at NXTGEN Racing, if not on a fortnightly basis. And we also do say hello in the YouTube chat to Ultra Gaming. And if I haven't missed any of you in the respective chats, I do apologise, but we can see so many messages of all of you. It's absolutely great to have you all tuning in and enjoying the racing. But as everybody gets themselves comfortably set now, we are only 5.5 minutes away from going to the grid once more. And what can we expect in the feature race? Well, firstly, it's a 60-minute race with a mandatory pit stop, and fuel is the requirement. Now, you may remember when we were talking about proceedings much earlier on today, I did mention that the idea of changing tyres may be a bit of an interesting quandary. For the simple reason, the Fuji Speedway circuit is very aggressive on left-hand side tyres. This is a clockwise running circuit, and what that means is there are more right-handers than left-handers typically in order to complete a full turn of the clock face, if you will, and if it was anti-clockwise, it would be the other way round. But given the fact that this circuit has a lot more right-handers than left-handers, it does mean that the left-hand side tyres will absolutely take a beating in terms of relative wear. And we can see that, for example, at 100R, which Russell Fowler has just made his way through for One Thing Esports, and he'll do the same again very shortly, go through 300R in the run down towards Dunlop Corner, which itself is a right-hander. Now, those left side tyres will most likely need to be changed as our drivers come into the pits, but do they change them or not is the question. If you decide to do this race on a single set of tyres, you save yourself time in the pits, particularly if that refuel time is shorter than it would be to change two tyres, because you have to keep in mind that in iRacing now, our drivers are permitted to take on fuel and change tyres simultaneously, something that was introduced in one of the recent major updates and was not previously there in 2022. So that means as the fuel goes into the car, they can be changing a tyre or two. Depending on how much fuel is going in, is how long it'll be before we do see the fuel gun come out and they're still changing tyres, and therefore they start to lose time in the pit lane. But we are expecting our drivers to take on enough fuel to potentially give them the opportunity to change at least one tyre, if not two, and so those left side tyres will be the key factor. For the right side tyres as well, it's not as though they're getting an easy day, with the fact they do go through quite an aggressive amount of wear going through the hairpin at turn number 6, and also the run through net span at turns 12 into 13. So if anybody does decide to invest in changing those right side tyres, they are going to lose a lot of time in the pit lane, but they may gain some race pace. But again, with this race only being 60 minutes in duration, we suspect most of the tyre changes will be on that left hand side of the car, and therefore the right hand side tyres will just have to be lived with.
As John Meredith makes his way on down towards turn number 1, the Meredith Racing driver there, heading in towards the braking zone very shortly. We're having a difficult first race of the day, not quite working out the way he wanted it to on his debut in this season of the GT3 League, but still plenty of time to come from the new man Porsche as he makes his way on through and down towards turn number 3. And I think he'll be feeling comfortable here. We started towards the very front of the grid, and well, how can those reverse grids really shake things up, I hear you ask? Well, given the fact that all of our drivers start in their respective classes now rather than the intermingled grid that you saw in race number 1, it does mean those who start at the very front, if they get a good start in terms of they're able to nail the launch and clear turn 1, they normally do have an opportunity to start to build some headway and break away. But in return, you do have the faster class drivers making the way on through the order, so those who won the race or were close towards the front. So we use John Mayer for an example in the bronze class. He'll be starting towards the front, given the fact things did not work out. But meanwhile, drivers such as Jordan Bayboy in the bronze class will try to carve the way through it as quickly as possible. Another name that will try to do the same is this man, Sean Scooter. But how long does it take for them to come through the field is the challenge. And well, if there's a major incident which involves the middle portion of the bronze class, then the answer is no time at all. Meanwhile, if everybody has a relatively calm opening couple of laps, then it can really become a bruising charge through the field for the faster drivers, and that's where you do see some of those unexpected winners at the front of the field come the end of the feature race. It's the same in the gold and the silver classes as well, and I think we are going to see a bit of an interesting one in the fact that David Camano wasn't really given an opportunity to demonstrate his pace in the sprint race, given the fact he was involved in a nasty incident early on for KFM Motorsport Red, but he is going to be starting from towards the front of the silver class alongside the likes, I should say, of Jack Barker and company, so therefore they're all going to have a good chance to try and bring home some major points. A minimum of a top 5, if not a podium, will be their target, but as now we are only at 1.5 minutes off, our drivers won't be thinking any more about that. They'll be thinking about just getting themselves now composed and set for going racing, and that's the thing as well as a driver. In these reverse grid races, you have to try and put it out in your mind where you're going to start. You have to try and treat it as another race and not let the pressure get into your mind, because if you're starting right at the front, you do very quickly try to psych yourself into that pressure status of what is, okay, I'm going to need to absolutely nail this start because I have an opportunity to win here, but really what you've got to do is just try to think, okay, take it one corner at a time, do the most basic things right, which is make sure you hit your braking block at turn number 1, you don't go and overshoot it, and instead you nail it and make your way onto the race. And once you clear the first couple of corners, you can settle down into the race. Speaking from my own experience, having raced a number of championships on iRacing and ACC, I've found it personally, once the first couple of laps have been cleared, then you're fully in the river. But once the first couple of corners have been cleared, you do start to settle down, but you can get those early race jitters, that nervousness that just stays with you for a little bit too long, and it can just seem to upset your momentum. As Jack Barker makes his way on down there towards turn number 1 in the Made for Racing number 6 car, heading into that braking zone very shortly. We've had the number 7 car there, but it should be the door number 6. That's what he's normally affiliated with. I think there has been a little bit of a mix up between the cars down in the pit lane. Right now the Brits are all set, ready to go one more time as his fellow Mercedes driver at Cramsaloon, the privateer in the 94. Well, the clock is only 10 seconds off now from the 15-minute window being complete, and we're hearing down the paddock that all is green and ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. All of our drivers are set now. 35 drivers will be taken to the tarmac once again. It's time for the 60-minute feature here at Fuji Speedway. As all our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they line up for the second race of the day. We start with the gold class at the front of the field, and Gavan Gardener for NXTGEN Racing takes pole position, joined by Victor Shimaro from KFM Motorsport Yellow. They make up row number 1. Row 2 goes to the pairing of Adam Delman and Gianni Tahar, the NXTGEN Racing driver starting ahead of the Quad Dash Racing driver, and then it's followed up by the pairing of Matt Shorter for CSA Green and Miguel Gutierrez Garcia, the privateer. On row 4, we've got Jonathan Cook for Performance League Esports and Akram Zadoon, the privateer, with row number 5 going to our top 2 drivers of Gaz Williams for NXTGEN Racing and CSA Pink Stefan Vessels. We then have the silver class behind them, and it'll be led away by Paul Scott for NXTGEN Racing, who is joined on row number 6 by KFM Motorsport Red's David Camano. Then on row number 7, it will be the pairing of Jack Barker for Made for Racing and Stefan Albanese Senior for DRS Esports, with Tom Bingham for Performance League Esports starting on the 3rd row of the group on row number 8 overall, and joined by KFM Motorsport Yellow's Nesta Delafleur. Then on row number 9 on the grid, it's NXTGEN Racing's Lee Horn, joined by Ben Bennyworth and Crest Autosport, with Matthew Addy and Alfonso Marin completing the top 20 for NXTGEN Racing and KFM Motorsport Red
red respectively. Then we then have on what is the final full silver row of the grid on row number 11, Russell Fowler for Performance Link Esports and Quad Dash Racing Tristan Egglestad, with Sergio Gonzalez completed your silver class in P23, starting from the very back of it for Kevin Motorsport Yellow. Then that starts off the bronze class, it's John Meredith, who will be on the 12th row of the grid, albeit by his lonesome technically. And on row number 13, it's Jorge Santos and Alex Rogenbuck behind the Meredith Racing driver, with Davide Favo starting on the 14th row of the grid for CSA Blue, joined by FR20 Sim Racing's Craig Tillerson. Completed the top 30, it's Elwin Sykes for CSA Green and Nigel Stock for Quest Autosport, with Sean Scooter started on row number 16 for CSA Blue, joined by Whiskey Runners Racing's Daniel Fritz. Then Jordan Baybois and Mark Sykes complete what is row at number 17, with Baybois your bronze winner, but Mark Sykes not making it to the checkered flag for NXTGEN Racing. Then CSA Peaks Wesley Lewin starts P35 or 35 at the back of the grid and will look to try and carve his way through from race start to race finish. But as all drives down, make the way on to the start finish straight. It's time for us to go racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. They're all set to go racing, but who's going to come out on top after what is 60 minutes of racing action? Well, it's the Gavan Gardener to take us away. And as we do get set today, who is going to be the winner of race number 2 here at Fuji Speedway? Let's find out. As the safety car peels it, it's the Gardener to take us to the green. And it's lights out and away we go for our second race of the day as Gardener gets the field underway. They charged out towards turn number 1. 35 cars absolutely crammed into packs. And as they come into the braking zone here, everybody right now itching to try and outbrake well over into the opening corner. Gardener there, being outbroken by Shimoro, but in return holds the inside line. And as they come out of 1 and in towards 3, meanwhile further behind we do have the scramble now between drivers as Paul Scott tries to hold the lead of the silver class here versus Lee Horn. Lee Horn tucking in behind as they come into turn number 3, and everybody right now surviving the opening corner. But as we look back to the bronze class here, Davide Farmer comes on through, seen of an instant there as we've got multiple cars into another corridor through Coca-Cola corner. It's all gone so horribly wrong early on, but that is going to shake up the order, there's no doubt about it. As meanwhile we've got Jordan Baybois trying to pick his way past what is Wesley Lewin. He gets up the inside of Lewin, in fact around the outside Lewin we should say, now into the hairpin they go, and Baybois on the inside of Elwin Sykes here as they clear what is turn number 6, but there Baybois has to slam on the brakes. He's got cars round in front of him. I do believe that might have been Mark Sykes involved in it in front, and now as they all get themselves back up to composure, meanwhile we look up to the front of the field, got a car around there. I believe that's Jonathan Cuckoo's gone round at a Dunlop corner where it's all going wrong for so many, but meanwhile Stefan Vest was getting it so right early on as he picks his way past Akram Sanoon, and now as they go for next, Ben Sanoon's going to try and come back at him. As they head up towards turn at number 14, well, Vessel's here to fence the inside, and Zanoon trying to come round the outside of the comeback here, and as they exit the corner he's not going to be able to find it, but that Mercedes will find something else in its entirety, and that is the draft off the rear of the Porsche. But more importantly, that V8 engine will now be able to absolutely tear its way down the straight as they go on to lap number 2 here, and Zanoon comes back and through up the inside here, and Vessels will not be pleased. In the fact now they're going to start squabbling over positions. This may cost them some time early on in the race. But as they come in to the braking zone now, it's going to be about Zanoon looking all the way in, but Vessels goes around the outside and decides to outbrake his Mercedes rival, but then Zanoon says no, I've got this covered, and simply shuts the door. But going onwards towards turn number 3, meanwhile Shimura losing a place to Matt Shorter as Shorter goes around the outside there into the braking zone for Coca-Cola, so Shimura drops down to P3 now as we do see the Ferrari driver for Kevin Motorsport Yellow trying to make a bit more headway, but he instead now finds himself being knocked further and further back as Adam Delman, the next driver, to try and strike up a move here for P3 in the gold class. But looking from them to your bronze leader, John Meredith here, the Meredith Racing driver having a recent day start as Matthew Addy gets it wrong there, coming out of turn number 5 into the hairpin they go, and Meredith goes around the outside of the silver P11 driver to take what is the next position overall. That's P19 overall, and Daniel Fritz and Nigel Stock have made the way for it, and Daniel Fritz right now has made a lot of progress early on as he comes down towards what is the Dunlop corner, goes into the right hand, and Nigel Stock and Craig Tillerson behind. And Fritz absolutely flying in these early stages and making such headway right now. The Whiskey Runners Racing driver, I think, will be feeling very comfortable with the race is going. But as they head in towards next bend, he's got the pressure of Nigel Stock and Sean Scooter growing behind him. But meanwhile, making the way out of Panasonic corner, this is Shimura versus Vessels again. Sanoon's already got ahead and broken away from this pair. And Shimura, I think, now really finds himself being knocked down the order. Albeit he's not going to give it as Vessels comes off the inside run.
in towards turn number 1, but it's a long, long way to go here as our drivers come down into the braking zone. You can see that Johnny Tahar, the Mercedes driver, thinks about going in between the turns, trying to go for the Moses maneuver, but decides not to in the end, trying not to make it 3 wide too early. But Chavot goes a bit deep, and this is going to enable Tahar to try and get a run in, but in the end Tahar has to back off, as meanwhile Gaz Williams has not made any progress so far in the gold class. In fact, he's lost at some places, and as they come down into turn number 3, Williams right now still trying to fight a way on through, and I think maybe did some fuel saving instead in order to give himself some strategic advantage later on in this race. But looking from them to Daniel Fritz, who finds himself packed in behind John Meredith. This is for the lead of the bronze class as they make their way through 100R, and Fritz there having to switch to the outside, really have to snatch at the steering wheel there. And we're going to look into the inside to the hairpin. You've got Nigel Stock on his outside. We won't be able to see Stock at the moment. We can assure you Nigel Stock is there. And in fact, as we do look to the exterior cameras, once again Stock having to run wide there at the hairpin and tucks back in as they make their way down towards turn number 10. Coming into the braking zone here. Well, right now John Meredith doing everything right to keep Fritz at bay and forcing the bronze drivers to battle one another as hard as possible, and that's sometimes what you've got to do when you haven't got the pace to break away. But meanwhile, Sean Scooter says, I've got the pace to break on through, gets his elbows out there versus Stock. A bit of contact between the two, Stock forced up onto the raised curves. Scooter as well bounced off of them. I think Scooter right now absolutely eager and adventurous to make places, but he's got to be careful being too firm with those moves, as always he may face the last of the stewards after the racing is all done. But as they come out of Panasonic corner, Scooter now up into P3 in the bronze class. He has come through this field very quickly. You can see Stock there not happy at all, flashing his lights constantly there to say, look, give me the place back. But Scooter already looking forward, not back, as they make their way onto another lap. But as they do, meanwhile, we do have Andrew Zadu moving up to P3 in the gold class, and overall, as he comes out of turn 1 into 2, making the move on to Adam Delman. We will try and get a replay back of that move very shortly, but what we can do immediately right now is get a replay of how the race start occurred, as we do look back here, and in particular, we do look back to Akram Zadu as things got underway from the midfield, and he's the focus of our cameraman's attention as our drivers will be looked at the blimp camera here, and now we do get to see all the field as it was green light racing in the run down towards turn number 1. And Zaduni actually being very conservative on braking. You see Williams there trying to fight his way through it, and that's where Vessels went around the outside. Everybody concentrated together now as they come through. Multiple 4 wides there, but everybody just about surviving it, albeit some contact between drivers as they came on down, but nobody being severely scuppered. But the driver who really lost out in all this was Jonathan Cook, the Ford League esports driver, and in fact we did have a bit of an incident there, so our drivers made the way in to turn number 3. Now who was caught up in that incident is the big question that we're trying to get the answer to. We can't quite at the moment. I think it was Miguel Gutierrez Garcia who got caught up in all of the incidents. As we did see him make his way into the corner side by side there with the 37 from Quad Dash Racing, and contact I think between the two said Garcia to the wall. And well, what else happened after that? We did have some other cars go round. Davide Fava getting caught up. Garcia rejoins, but that's to get the car for the circuit, respect to the fact the rest of the field is coming on through. But Davide Fava having an unfortunate incident as well into the corner, so as he made his way into the braking zone here. We're looking at the CSA Blue Audi R8. And into left-hander, and I think they're steering clear, and well, Stefan Albanese being caught up in an incident, and Favo just been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and we also saw there while the Kevin Motorsport cars getting it wrong. What happened to Stefan Albanese here? Going into the braking zone, a car on the inside, the BMW made contact with the M4, and we're not quite sure who that was he made contact with, but he can definitely tell you it went wrong for the pair of them, and that was Albanese's race going very wrong in quick succession. And then we did have the incident for Jonathan Cook a little bit later on, and this is what happened to Cook in the run down towards Dunlop Corner. Looks up the inside here of what I believe was Adam Delman under braking, goes all in, and in the end makes contact with the rear, I think, of the CSA green car shorter, and Cook just goes round in trying to get the car stopped. Well, those are the incidents on the open lap, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a few of them, and well, as we return it to your pictures now, battling still continues. That Sean Scooter has been involved in it, so quite recently that's dropped him all the way down from being in P3 in the bronze class. We're not quite sure what's happened to Scooter. We will get a replay of that shortly, but meanwhile, we're looking into Jack Barker battling with what is there, Sergio Gonzalez, as Gonzalez makes the move for 11, Barker now defending versus Fowler. And this is now for P9 in the silver class as they make the way up the hill towards Panasonic Corner. We're only 8 minutes into this race. We've got a long way to go. Already some drivers lose out, whereas others gaining rapidly. And Barker right now just not quite on the pace of his peers, but still, he did mention to me at the build-up today wasn't expected to be anywhere near the pace we've previously seen from him, and therefore his target is just to try and get the car home without incident as they make the way on to another lap. charging on down. Meanwhile, Alfonso Marin here on the right, on the outside, we should say, in the run to turn 1 versus Ben Bennyworth, who's on the left of your picture in the BMW M4. Marin in the Mercedes here. He's going to try and hold it around the outside or cut it back as a minimum, and that's what he does. He goes for the latter on the cutback of corner exit. Meanwhile, Bennyworth here now sets on the run for the kink up to the inside of 3 at West Coca-Cola, and you can see in the rear of the picture Barker and Fowler in a similar situation as they come on in. Barker defends well here, covers off Fowler. Fowler cuts back now as they make the way into 100R, but still cannot find a way to get the momentum and get the place done. But meanwhile, Bennyworth has not given up here, albeit I think now he's got pressure building from Gonzalez as they come into the hairpin, but Bennyworth will cover off this pressure from Gonzalez as they come on through, so Bennyworth will hold P7 for the time being. Meanwhile, Fowler has looked up the inside of Barker into turn 6 and has got the move done there slightly off camera as they come down the round in towards Dunlop Corner, and onto the brakes they go, and Will Fowler has made this count. But meanwhile, oh goodness me, and it's carnage at next bend in between Akram Zanoon and what I believe was Matt Short, to the two of them going round. Zanoon letting the car roll back off the road and now trying to get it turned around as he does so, but that's going to shake up things at the very front in the gold class, and it means that Gavan Gardener right now, your race leader overall and in gold, is 4 seconds clear of Adam Delmont P2, and that 4 seconds is articulated in our pictures here, and will right now a very comfortable being by himself situation, which is not a bad thing, as we can see Jamie Dory there cheering on at Gavan Gardener from Goodwood via the YouTube chat, and Dory saying he'll be back next race. But meanwhile, we're back to the race and actually 3 wide as they come down into turn 1. That is going to be, I do believe, what is Vessels defending on the inside. In fact, that's Matt Short to defend on the inside versus Shamara, and then Paul Scott trying to find his way through. Paul Scott is the silver leader with Gianni Tahar now going up his inside, and that's only for overall position by Tahar. But Paul Scott right now eager to make progress. He goes very wide at Coca-Cola, and with that Lee Horn's not too far behind, but Tahar backs off here, respecting that Scott's had a bit of a run wide, and as they make the way up through 100R, meanwhile we look back to Shorter versus Shamara. Shamara up the inside, and the CSA green driver there being given the elbow out to say, okay, the place is mine, but Shorter cuts back here and says, have you considered trying this? And as they make the way up towards turn number 10, Shorter going all in on the charge here, but I think Shamara's got the move done, but P5 in the gold class for the time being as they break into the corner, contact between the two. Shamara sent wide there with Shorter tap in the rear of the Gavan Motorsport yellow car, and with Shorter backs off there to give Shamara the opportunity to return. I don't think there's any malice meant by that. That goes to show you that right now both of these drivers are absolutely unsettled as they make the way on around and through the left-hander in next bend. We're coming up the hill. Meanwhile, we had an instant for John and Meredith in the bronze class, but before we talk about that, we've still got plenty of battling occurring on further down. Ben Bennyworth, they're going skywards over the exit curve of what I do believe was Nets and heading it up towards Panasonic Corner. So he's tucked in by Leon and Russell Fowler, but it is kicking off left, right and centre on the screen right now as Bennyworth here I think has got a slowdown penalty for his troubles, and he may be coming into the pits, in fact with suspension damage, with the fact the front of the car was rocked very high, and indeed he is in, and we have had Matt Shorter coming to the pit lane as well. But meanwhile, still battling on circuit, we do have what is David Commander versus Tristan Engelstad. Engelstad on the inside into turn 1, and I think this is going to be a straightforward move for Engelstad to take P2 as the Quad Dash Racing drive now looks to go hunting after Paul Scott for the lead of the silver class here, but when Engelstad denied the win in what was the first race of the day, albeit by the fact he was not close enough to go for the move of Gonzalez, and then the second race of the day giving it everything to try and find a way on through. Meanwhile, Tom Bingham still trying to find his way past Matthew Addy for P8 in the silver class as they make the way through 100R up the inside performance. I think East was. I think this might be relatively straightforward unless Addy can put it back into the hairpin, which he does at the inside, flows it nicely, but Bingham now will cut it back in the corner exit here. But loads of oversteer there as Bingham tries to get the power down too soon on steering input, and as a result the number 17 BMW M4 languishes back into P9 in the silver class, with Nigel Stott now only 8 tenths behind. But as they come on towards turn number 10, meanwhile, Engelstad, oh my good lord, and Engelstad's into the wall, and that is on the exit of turn 10 into 11. It's all gone wrong for the Quad Dash Racing driver. We've had a number of major incidents quite recently, and Engelstad one driver to lose out significantly. Well, meanwhile, whilst all this is playing out, we do have Adam Delmont trying to make progress versus what is there, Stefan Vessels, but Vessels up the inside. In fact, Vessels is the attacker in this situation, trying to take P2 in the battle of the two Porsches, down the start finish straight, and as they head up towards turn number 1, Vessels takes the second place spot, and Delmont here I don't think wants to fight it for the simple reason, I think he respects the fact he's not quite on the pace of Vessels in this race, and therefore just gladly tuck into the toe and say, right, carry me on through to a podium, where Gaz Williams only a second behind. Well, now, with Vessels having clear track, I think Delmont will back into the clutches of Williams, and in return, Vessels will be trying to hunt down Gardner as quickly as he possibly can as they roll on through 100R. But as we look to Gaz Williams at the back of this group, having a bit of a quiet first race of the day, albeit a second place, he'll be happy with that, but quiet relative to the pace of Vessels. And right now, Williams trying to find his way through, but I think trying to work some strategy in here to close up to Delmont, and then go hunting after Vessels and Gardner come the second stint of this race. But a long way to go here for all four drivers in that battle for the lead of the gold class. But whilst they charge on, meanwhile, we look to Davide Farvo versus Craig Tillotson in the battle for P8 in bronze, and Tillotson there holding on to P8 as they come through Coca-Cola corner. And I think this battle will subside for a brief moment as they come on down through 100R themselves. We jump on board with Davide Farvo in the Audi R8 LMS, the original 2015 GT3 machine. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the Evo 1 or the Evo 2 make its way onto the shores of iRacing thus far, but still, whilst the machine may be old, Davide Farvo has got his faith in the machine as he makes his way out to the hairpin and down towards turn number 10. And building his way up through the gearbox, the Audi really strong on the corners, plus also low to medium speed acceleration zones. And as they make their way through turn number 10, with Tillotson right now not dropping Farvo. Farvo's still there with him, albeit under brake. And Tillotson going much late on the brakes there into turn 11 and just catching the car in time. But Farvo taking the standard racing line and now really starting to come back into the side. I think both of them starting to put pressure on each other as they head on towards Panasonic corner. Now, whilst this is happening, Matthew Addy's into the pit lane. As I look at my commentary booth window, I believe that maybe is for an early scheduled stop, but we need to take an opportunity to look back at a number of incidents which have occurred over the last few laps. And we start off with regards to the contact between Akram Zanoon and Matt Shorter, and this is what happened going into next. As they made the way up the hill into the braking zone, well, Shorter hitting one of the raised curbs there and sending the suspension skyward. Zanoon losing the car, and then the rear of the car coming around and contacting Shorter's car. So Zanoon going for an opportune pass and just loses the rear slide. That's a very unfortunate instant for Zanoon, and I think he'll be absolutely kicking himself for that one. Then we did have an incident between John Meredith and Jordan Baybois later on lap number 7. This was in the run to turn 3. Meredith trying to squeeze Baybois to the apex. Both guys turning in, and well, that's a very difficult one to call between the two. I think Baybois feels though he was squeezed so far to the apex. Where can he go? And I think Meredith there, in terms of squeezing, managed to turn it slightly across Baybois, expecting Baybois to back out. But that's going to be one I think the Studs will need to take a look at between them, as it has cost both drivers quite a bit of time in their race. And Meredith now dropping down to P7 in the bronze class, and Baybois P3 in the class. But as we do return to live pictures, those are the two big major incidents we've had quite recently. And then we've had the major incident of what happened to Tristan Engelstad in the last couple of laps, in the fact he was in the wall at what was turn number 10. And well, here is the replay of what exactly happened to Tristan Engelstad. Came through Dunlop corner, gets it wrong. The car bouncing down the exit curb, and as he tries to bring it back onto the tarmac, the car snapping loose the other way. And for Engelstad, it all ended up in a disaster. Was right on board here, and you'll see gets hooked up initially, but as soon as the car rejoins the tarmac from the curb, it's unsettled, and it is a mating with the wall there for the Quad Dash Racing driver. But as we return to live pictures now, definitely one which he's going to be learning from as soon as possible. But as we return to those live pictures, we've still got plenty of battling to go, including the battle for P4 in the bronze class here between Mark Sykes and Alexander Rogenbuck, as we see John Meredith trying to get in close there, tapped to the rear of Rogenbuck's car. Meredith being very adventurous under braking there as they head up towards turn number 3, and will Sykes all over the back of Wesley Lewin for position as the trio head on through Coca-Cola. Coming out to left-hander and into 100R now, Lewin ahead of Sykes and Rogenbuck. And the thing between these guys is in the fact that Lewin right now doing everything right in order to hold on for P3 for CSA. I think he may not have had the pace in qualifying, but he's definitely showing he's got the guts and determination to defend well, and sometimes that's what you've got to do in order to get these big points in at the feed races. But as they head onwards towards the corner of Dunlop very shortly, Lewin right now digging in here, baring his teeth and saying to Sykes, if you want it, you're going to have to come and get it. But he runs a bit wide there to catch the car at Dunlop. It's so easy to run onto that AstroTurf on the outside, and Sykes will now look to go from inside to outside into next bend, the battle of the two Ferraris. But the problem here for Sykes is he's going to do it the long way round, because Wesley Lewin will just simply park it on apex and say, okay, where are you going to go? coming up the hill into Panasonic corner. John Meredith and Rogenbach behind, all now trying to get into the mix here as Meredith looking up the inside of Rogenbach. This will compromise their corner exits, and it will be a drag race here, albeit Rogenbach will get the distance over the back of Mark Sykes' car. Meredith, meanwhile, he's thinking about cutting back in, but he doesn't want to do so too soon because he doesn't want to give Rogenbach the early toe. But I think here, when you have got just close to a mile's worth of straightway to deal with, I think Meredith will have to get into the toe at some point, otherwise he'll naturally lose out. But as they head into the braking zone, it's Sykes on the inside of Lewin, and it's going to be Meredith defending versus Rogenbach as they come into one. Lewin there does not find his way back versus Sykes. Sykes does take P3 in the bronze class, and John Meredith does hold off Rogenbach for P5 in the same class as Craig Tillotson now closes up, and they've also got just a bit further behind Davide Farbo as they head into Coca-Cola corner. But through the left-hander they go and onwards towards what will be the run through 100R now. This battle in the bronze class definitely intensifying as Tillotson also trying to look for a move on the Lamborghini driver. He thinks about it into the hairpin, he can't quite find it, but as they head on out, meanwhile we look from them to a little bit further up the order, and in particular to what is David Camano, as we can see the KFM Motorsport red driver P2 in the silver class. But Russell Fowler says, okay, I'm going for P3, but in return, with that move there, going in quite early on the inside versus Gonzalez. Gonzalez has his number and says, I've seen that one, and indeed it's a classic move, and immediately Gonzalez cuts him back, as meanwhile Camano comes into the pits from P2 in the silver class. We decide to go for the undercut, so we do have the pit window in effect right now in terms of what we can expect drivers to go for early pit stops, and well, is that going to pay dividends, as meanwhile Gaz Williams versus Adam Delmont does take P3 in the gold class just up the road as they make their way on down towards 100R, and Victor Shamaro versus Gianni Tahar. It's too wide into Coca-Cola for P5 in the gold class, and Shamaro gets it done there, and Gianni Tahar now will have the silver leader and Paul Scott hot on his heels. As they come on around and up towards the hairpin, well, Scott now will not want to be held up here, given the fact he's only got 5 seconds to Sergio Gonzalez, and Gonzalez has been matching him on pace on clear laps. But as they head up towards turn number 10, we look from them to a bit further down the order, and in particular one driver is trying to make a recovery drive right now as he goes up the inside of Elwyn Sykes for overall P25, and that's Stefan Albanese Sr. caught up in that unfortunate incident at turn number 3 in the early stage of the race, and right now trying to make headway, as meanwhile making haste is Wesley Lewin here as he tries to hold off Meredith and Tillotson, who in turn are battling side by side in through the hairpin at turn number 6, and Meredith still digging in here as much as he can, but you can see Tillotson all over the back of him as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Meredith Racing 25 Porsche. Now as they get ready to head into the braking zone for turn number 10, will Tillotson look for the move? No, he does not. He backs off as sparks fly from Meredith hitting the curb at turn number 10. Up the hill they're going to 11. And through the right hand, Meredith makes his braking point. They're just about a little bit of a wobble on turn here, but still the Porsche 9 and 2 are able to make it. And through the left hander they go. On next now up towards turn number 14 to Panasonic. Rogenbach still at the back of this group, as is Davide Farber. They're all coming together, and through the right hander they go. And Meredith losing the car and into the wall of quarter exit, getting the power down too soon, it would seem. And as he does so, for John Meredith, he'll get the car turned around, but he's going to have to be wary of the fact that Albanese comes to the racing line, and will Meredith there with a unsafe rejoin by looks of things, and Albanese not having time to react, as meanwhile we look from them to the road, and it's kicking off between Gianni Tahar and what is there Gutierrez Garcia, as Tahar goes to the wall and well essentially bounces off the tyre barrier there, and that gives him a bit of a boost to make his way back onto the circuit for the Dutchman. But a nasty moment for a couple of drivers, and well, we've got plenty to dissect with regards to what's happened, and we'll have to take some replays very shortly as we're in that Jack Parker is into the pit lane after a spin on that previous lap. Stefan Albanese in with the damage, John Meredith in with the damage as well, so it's all going wrong for so many drivers, as meanwhile Alexander Rogenbach trying to make some headway, but here Nestor de la Fou says, I'm taking this place off you, and the P6 silver driver makes way past the P7 bronze driver as they head onwards, and that's a change of overall position with de la Fou up towards P21 overall. But as they come down in towards the Dunlop corner once again, it's been a very eventful first third of this race. We're 22 minutes in, still do have the best part of 38 minutes of racing action to go past the final lap, and we're not done yet with regards to battling, as meanwhile Paul Scott here is about to be passed by Akram Sanu for overall position P6. Sanu on the left of your pitch there in the KFM Motorsport yellow Mercedes. Barker comes out the pit lane, effectively a lap down now on the leaders, but Scott here just simply not fighting this guy, and the overall position is more important as they charge their way all the way up towards turn number 3. But as they do, we say hello there to Antonio Jimenez in the YouTube chat, who is cheering on Nesta Blue, and it's good to see as they head all the way on around. Everybody really right now getting behind their respective drivers in the YouTube chat, and everybody on this base right now looking towards their first pit stops of the day in due course. Speaking of which, Craig Tillotson here looking to battle his way past Wesley Lewin for P4 in the bronze class. Tillotson on the left of your picture, Lewin on the outside, going around here, going through the turn 1 hairpin, and as they do, it's still a drag race as they head up towards Coca-Cola, but Lewin's going to lose out in that drag race as we jump on board with the CSA pink driver. And as he comes on for a left-hander, they're having to keep 2 wheels within the white lines, or as he will be subject to a major automated slowdown penalty. But going on through 100R now, having to back up with Davide Favo immediately behind him. I think Lewin having to think about, does he let Favo go here to try and work together with his fellow CSA driver? Well, Delafeu makes his way on past them in terms of going on past Favo. They're under braking into the hairpin, and as they make their way through the corner, Delafeu is not hanging around here. The number 24 BMW M4 driver very eager to make progress as Favo thinks about coming back at him. I think Delafeu trying to give him the elbow there by wiggling the car in the middle of the road, and it all goes wrong for Lewin as he goes wide out of Dunlop, and Delafeu sends him on his way. Albeit you would argue for the 24 BMW driver, he had no way of evading the wayward Ferrari there, so Delafeu's got some damage on the front of the car, but it will cost him some straight line speed, but hopefully nothing more than that, and he'll be grateful, I think, that it wasn't far worse. But danger around any corner. Speaking of danger being around any corner, well, it's danger for the leader of Gavan Gardener in the fact he's got Stefan Vessels right behind him, and Vessels has caught up as they make the way out of turn 6 on lap number 16, charging their way on towards what is turn number 10. And turn towards the braking zone they go, and as they do, Gavan Gardener right now under huge pressure from Stefan Vessels, who is eager to try and take the lead of this race and just run off into the distance. You've got Gaz Williams a further 3.5 seconds behind, but not making enough headway right now. But Gardener definitely here trying to pull out all the stops to keep Vessels at bay, but the problem is he's not going to be able to pull out the stops very shortly, as for the simple reason we've got 0.9 mile straight coming up, and for Gardener he's got no toe in order to try and outrun the Porsche of Vessels to the turn 1 braking zone. But let's see if he's able to find a way to break away as we ride aboard the gearbox on the Ferrari 488 Evo as they head on down, and this is where the Ferrari will initially gain as Vessels now in the tow. He's 4 tenths away. He'll gradually start to gain little by little. In fact, I think they're going to find enough time on the straight to be able to make the Ferrari work as he uses the toe there of lap down Gianni Tahar in order to assist him into the braking zone. So Vessels not able to find a way this time. And as they head on towards what is turn number 3, right now Gardener feeling safe, but I think Vessels has got it all in the corners, and that's where he's able to get extremely close over the course of the given lap. But as our drivers head on through 100R, this is where we'll start to see Vessels really push with regards to close up. He'll know that he needs to do all the hard work through what is through the last 2 sections of the circuit, and then going on to that start finish straight, he needs to be this close in order to be able to go on the offensive. And as we ride on board here with Stefan Vessels, you'll get to see just how hard he's going to have to work now through 300R into Dunlop with 2.5 tenths being in the gap. And as they head into the braking zone here, coming all the way down to 3rd gear, keeps it nice and tight. And keeping in mind all this pressure he puts onto Gardener, again working his favour here for the simple reason he doesn't necessarily need to make the pass. If he can get Gardener to make a mistake naturally, then the pass may come also as a result of Gardener psyching himself out rather than Vessels putting the pressure on and forcing the move. But as they come in to Panasonic corner, Vessels trying to take a slightly tighter approach line here. This is to try and guarantee he's in the draft of corner exit, and he does so there, 2.5 tenths this time, and Vessels does hook it up better on corner exit. Now he is gaining, but you can see how the Ferrari able to push on. Vessels does a dummy towards the pit lane, trying to think Gardener, trying to deceive Gardener into thinking he's coming on in and perhaps get Gardener to react, but no, neither driver does. And as they head down towards turn 1 this time, 2 tenths of the gap. Vessels speaking about it, you can see all the spaces there if he's got the brakes to it, but Gardener able to stop the car just in time once more as they roll off of the turn 1 apex and onwards towards turn number 3 they go. Gaz Williams now within 2 tenths here. He is closing Williams as we look to him in the rear of the picture. Adam Delmont a further second behind as well. It does look as though the Next Gen Racing pair are eager to get into this fight, but will they have enough time to do so? That is the big question for them as they come on around. And as they do, meanwhile, still battles are plenty further down the order, including Atkins Zanoon trying to make its way past Elwyn Sykes here. Keep in mind that Zanoon has made its first pit stop and his only expected pit stop of the day on strategy. Sykes there steps aside. I think Zanoon and Sykes both communicating between one another in terms of the fact that Zanoon is in a different race. He has already taken his pit stops to Wi-Fi, and as they come out of the final corner, Zanoon trying to charge down what will be a top 5 in the gold class, and will absolutely blast it right now in the Mercedes in terms of that throttle pedal. He'll be putting it all the way to the floor, being as though that V8 engine could give him the momentum he needs. But as he heads in towards another lap, going on to lap number 18 for him, it's a long road to go, and we still do have 2/3 of the field yet to take their mandatory pit stop. But as he goes into the opening corner, meanwhile, we do look a bit further back to David Camano here, who has got in front of him. I do believe that is Matt Shorter, who has just cleared his pit stop, and Shorter right now, in fact, Shorter has cleared his pit stop a lot earlier than this, so therefore Shorter trying to break away from Camano. But if anything, it's the other way round. As meanwhile, I look out my commentary booth window, Vessels, Williams and Delman all into the pit lane. Gavan Gardener has not come in, so Vessels, I think, looking for the undercut, and Williams and Delman responding to Vessels and Zix here in terms of strategy. But Gardner right now staying out of the circuit and going ever longer. I think hoping he can keep clear track. We'll have to wait and see how they all fit together, as Paul Scott's in from the lead of the silver class as well. And well, there is Paul Scott making his way down pit lane as Victor Shimara has made his way on. Shimara has made his way on through to go on to another lap, and so is Jonathan Cook in the gold class. So it's interesting to see the split of strategies in amongst the field. Meanwhile, our bronze leader of Nigel Stott carries on his merry way onto another lap. So not everybody coming into the pits thus far as we get towards the halfway point of this race. But Vessels are making his way out of the pit lane now, and as he does so, where does this put him in the field? There's Williams coming on out, and Williams in fact has maintained the gap, if not closed it slightly, and Delman also coming in and out here. In fact, Delman is going to jump Williams on pit lane exit. It's going to be side by side as they make the way on down, but Williams does just squeeze back ahead. But there's Craig Tiddiston, the P4 bronze driver, and behind, I believe, that is Lester De La Fleur, who is going to get involved here. Delman in contact with Tiddiston, I think, trying to give him a little bit of a nudge there to say, can you politely let me go? I think Tiddiston won't be too obliging given they've made contact. And as they come into Coca-Cola corner, well, Williams does clear the traffic, but it's disaster for Delman. He is caught up right now, needs to find his way through as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Stefan Vessels has bought himself clear track. He's got plenty of space in front of him as Gavan Gardener comes into the pit lane for his mandatory stop. I reckon Vessels may be able to make this jump happen here, albeit it's Gardner who has reacted immediately by coming in a lap later. So I have to see what Vessels can do on this out lap, but if he can absolutely hit this lap off, it may be side by side into turn 1 between the pair of them. As Vessels comes up the hill in towards turn number 11, a halfway point in the race reached now. Still plenty of time in this race, but it's now all going to come down to strategy and then the final stint. And we'll go on in the pit box very shortly. There he goes for NXTGEN Racing, parks up towards the end of the pit lane as well. Carl goes up on the jacks. Jonathan Cook, meanwhile, goes another lap, so he's going to extend this stint in the gold class even longer. It'll be the longest gold stint of them all, and I think hoping that track position and going for the overcut will give him all the space in order to potentially make some jumps later on in the race on strategy or close up to drivers. But meanwhile, Garner leaving his pit lane now, and as he does, where is Vessels? Well, there's Stefan Vessels. Garner heading on down towards turn number 1. Who's made the jump? Well, Gardner's made the jump there. As you can see, there is Gardner, and then there is Vessels. In fact, Gavan Gardner has gained in the pits. He has gained the best part of what is 2 to 3 seconds, and so Vessels now has got it all to do once again in terms of closing up. Not that we doubt he can do that. I think Vessels will very comfortably be able to make that ground up as quickly as possible, but definitely it goes to show that for Gavan Gardener, he feels as though he can control this race with regards to the pit stops, and now Vessels has got to get the move done on the circuit. And to put you in the frame of the picture, Vessels was 2 seconds longer in the pit lane compared to Gardener in terms of stationary time, and that may argue why that gap has opened up to what is a grand total of 2 seconds effectively. It's all come down to the pit stop time. As they come in towards the Dunlop corner now, still 28 minutes to go, and if Garner's able to keep Vessels behind for 28 minutes, that will be a medal in itself, and perhaps one of the battles of the season as they head on through. Meanwhile, looking to the silver leaders, here's Sergio Gonzalez, the Kevin Motorsport Yellow, caught up behind what is his gold teammate of Victor Chamorro. These two are both pitted, but Paul Scott is right behind Gonzalez, and right now Gonzalez is trying to break away from Scott for the simple reason he does not want that pressure on him in the long term. As they make the way on towards what is the final corner, and then all the way on around, you can see how Gonzalez little under pressure from Scott and really right now I think hoping that Shimaro will either let him go or enable him to gain some speed on the start finish straight and then make the move into turn one. But either way, it's not a comfortable position to be in, as we are hearing that Nigel Stock has had to be towed to the pits. We're not quite sure as to the reason why Stock has had to be towed, but as our tries charge away down towards turn number one, and once again Scott ahead of Russell Fowler, and Fowler as well behind Scott by only 4 attempts. So the battle for the lead of the silver class, indeed all three of the top spots under intense scrutiny right now as they head in towards the braking zone. You can see Gonzalez there, I think, trying to signal to his Gavan Motorsport teammate of what is there. Shimaro, look, I need to be let through. I've got pressure building behind me, but no change at the moment as they head up towards turn number 3, in towards Coca-Cola, and we ride on board from the gyro mount of Russell Fowler's BMW M4, who's P3 in the silver class for Performance Link Esports. Now coming on down into 100R here with the conditions staying very cloudy as we've got a car off the road. That's Davide Favo, who is lapped down, and respecting the fact he's got the lead lap group coming through, so therefore not rejoining until he's been cleared. And as they come on through at turn at number 6 and the hairpin, it does look as though Fowler's now starting to snarl and grunt and build his way up behind Scott as much as possible. We're trying to put the pressure on the P2 driver, albeit Scott eager to try and get past Gonzalez. But again, if Gonzalez keeps being benefited by the tow of Shimaro onto that start finish straight, it will make it much more difficult for Scott to be able to make that ground that he would so want to cover. And as they come on through what is turn 11 towards 12-13 they go into the braking zone. Car around there, and it's very tight, but it's the case that all the top three of the silver class are able to avoid the wayward Victor Shimaro as the gold driver goes on around. And well, we'll have to take a look back at what happened there very shortly. In fact, I think Jonathan Cook has been caught up with Shimaro as they made the way through the corner. In fact, it's going to be Cook who has cleared Shimaro, so we have to correct our statement there. But now Shimaro, Cook has got shorter behind him, and that's the battle for P6 in the gold class. But Cook does have the tow of Alfonso Marin as they head down towards turn number 1. Albeit I think the BMW right now will literally be huffing and puffing as much as it can, with the Porsche immediately behind within a tenth, as they in fact within, yes it is within a tenth as they head into the braking zone. Cook defends off centre of the road. Shorter looking around the outside for a cutback here, but Cook does hold the line, and therefore Shorter made to wait as they head on for an up towards turn number 3. As they charge on through, you remember a bit early on, Jordan Baybar losing out in the early stage of this race from the bronze lead battle. But right now, the privateer from France up to P2 in the bronze class, making a place overall for P17 there versus Ben Bennyworth. And right now, only 4 seconds between Baybar and his target, which is the class leader of Daniel Fritz Whiskey Runners Racing. And Fritz will be wary of the fact that on that last lap, Baybar took 1.2 seconds out of him, and that was aided by the tow, to be fair. But the point being, Fritz is not the fastest man in the bronze class right now. Baybar is, and Baybar is coming very rapidly. But then we look to the silver class, and this is Lee Horn versus Kamano as they head in towards Dunlop Corner. Kamano up the inside to take P5 in the class of Horn. And as they go all the way up the hill now towards Panasonic Corner, it's Bingham just behind them, so it's a three-way battle for P5, much like it's a three-way battle for the lead of the silver class. And the silver class absolutely alive with racing action right now wherever you look. And as we look back from the rear, the Gavan Motorsport Red Huracan Evo of Kamano, the Spaniard here, under huge pressure as they come on through. The right hand of Panasonic gets the better exit compared to Horn, and this may just give Kamano the leverage he needs to stay clear of Horn as they head down towards turn number 1. As they head on down, we look from them to Fowler versus Paul Scott at the end of the start finish straight for P2. Fowler on the inside, this is the second in the silver class, makes it look like clockwork there, but Scott not battling hard, and I think wary of the fact they don't want to lose the leader of Gonzalez, who's now a second clear due to their brief spate of battling. But as they make the way onwards, I mean, we'll look back to the battle for P5, and Kamano still safe there versus Horn and Bingham as they head onwards towards turn number 3, albeit Horn thinking about a run back here, can't quite find it, and in to the braking zone they go, and no way through for Horn on the counter-attack right now. But meanwhile, speaking of counter-attacks here, there is going to be another attack for the leaders race overall in the gold class. Garner is your leader, but there is Vessels. He's closed up over the last 5 minutes of racing, and as they head in towards Panasonic, the gap now down to 4 attempts as they come to the apex of the final corner. And well, Garner, we hope that he can break away, as we do see the Davide Favo going wide out the final corner, I think to respect the leaders and the blue flags. And as they charge all the way down towards turn number 1, Vessels is there 5 attempts away, but he's not close enough. The Ferrari is able to pull away little by little, just having a bit more leverage on the straight with the V8 engine
versus the 6 cylinders on the 992 and heading into that braking zone. Gardener is safe this time around, but I suspect next time around it may be a bit of a different story. We're going onwards towards what will be turn number 3 shortly. We look from them to outside of the top 10 of classes, and in particular the battle for P11 in the silver class here between Matthew Addy and Jack Barker. And as they head up the hill towards turn number 6, well, Addy looking for a potential move here versus the made for racing Mercedes. NXTGEN Racing Sam Cases UK Porsche is looking the faster and more aggressive of the two as they head out to the hairpin. But of course, the Mercedes here able to lay down the law when it comes to straight line racing. And as they head in towards turn number 10, Addy will need to try and make this move happen under cornering and under braking, because that's where he's got the speed. As Barker has a little bit of wobble there, a bit of oversteer creeping in. Out of 10, Addy up the inside here, gets clear under braking, and as he does, he takes P11 for NXTGEN Racing, going up the hill now into next bend. I think Barker may have to let this one go. But looking from them, it's a bit further up in the silver class. This is Bingham versus Horn, as meanwhile Kamano is being allowed to run away in P5. The KFM Motorsport red car clearing off, but meanwhile the Fontaine eSports driver Tom Bingham making the move there on Lee Horn and gets the move done out of the hairpin. But how did the move start here, you ask? Well, let's take a look back. Well, this was in the run on down out of Coca-Cola corner, and Horn went right initially, and as he rejoined had to lift off to settle the car, and Bingham simply snuck into the space on the inside of turn 4 and said, don't mind if I do, and Horn there just not able to make a comeback as they headed into the hairpin. But as we return to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, progress being made for some drivers, including Tristan Engelstad, who now P9 in the silver class, still trying to fight his way through. His next target is Ben Bennyworth, and to put you in perspective, the fastest silver driver out there right now is Tristan Engelstad. He is absolutely flying as he makes his way up the hill towards turn number 13 at next bend. And now the Quad Dash Racing driver, can he win this race? Unlikely, given it's a 28.5 second gap to Gonzalez, and the fact he's only lapping a couple of tenths faster on average compared to Gonzalez per lap. But at the same time, the point for Engelstad being the versus likes of Bennyworth and also Horn at Bingham Kamano, he is lapping on average right now anywhere between half a second to a second faster, battling depending. And as they make their way onwards towards turn number 1, Engelstad absolutely charging on through. But as he heads down towards turn 1, we can see Jonathan Cook there, or Jono Cook in the YouTube chat, saying about the incident which we saw at one of the corners early on where all went wrong for Cook. And sorry to hear that, Jonathan, but at the same time, we're happy to see you out on the circuit today and hope to see plenty more from you. And in fact, we do have a replay coming up of that incident now, I do believe, and here is the incident. In fact, it may not be. This may be the aftermath as he makes his way up towards turn number 6, under braking there into the apex, and will this contact with the number 6 car of what was Kamano, who got the move done, was trying to get the move done there versus Cook in order to clear ahead of Bingham, and will for Jonathan Cook an unfortunate moment there, but still we hope to see that car back out on circuit before the race is all said and done. But definitely Kamano under pressure as they head on around, and as they do, Engelstad right now still trying to make that progress, and Gianni Tahara as well, his fellow Quad Dash Racing teammate, the gold driver here, doing everything he can in order to chase down Matt Shorter, who is 3.5 seconds up the road, in fact 4 seconds up the road, as we get an update on our timing tower. And the Dutchman here has got to clear Ben Bennyworth first in order to do so, but as he does and makes his way on through the Panasonic corner, we look up to Bingham and what is there, David Kamano, keeping in mind that Kamano does have some damage on the car. And as they head all the way down towards turn number 1, well, Bingham I think will feel his save from Horn, but he'll want to go hunting after Kamano here for that final spot inside the silver top 5. But still, Lee Horn get the better exit there coming out of turn 1, and as they do, it looks like Horn now will try and go all the way around the outside as they head into the braking zone for Coca-Cola. But Bingham defends here, and Horn tries for the cutback but hesitates, and I think Horn realised that it wasn't going to work. We ride on board with the NXTGEN Racing Porsche 992 driver from the United Kingdom, and then out towards the hairpin. Bingham looking vulnerable here as Horn is able to brake much more aggressively and later into the hairpin. Bingham able to stop the car well before, and Horn has time to react to that as they head up towards Dunlop corner via 300R. You can see Horn scrambling here to try and make a move before the lap is over. Coming into Dunlop, won't be able to find it here, but gets very close under braking within 2/10. Will he look for it to turn 11? It's an opportunity, and well, Bingham goes deep. Horn looks up the inside. Bingham outbrakes himself under pressure, and Lee Horn takes P6 back in the silver class there with a deft bit of manoeuvring. But as they head on through next bend, you have to keep in mind that Horn now
will have that concern about the start-finish straight. With a gap of 6/10 so far, I think he will be safe enough in the drag race. Out towards turn number 1, gap on corner exit will be 6/10 there just about. So Horn should have enough speed here in order to carry his lead in that battle for the position all the way through and on to the next corner. As they make the way down, meanwhile we look from them back up to your leaders, and here is Gavan Gardener versus Stefan Vessels, albeit a little bit of traffic in front of them in the form of Davide Farber and Jack Parker as they head up towards turn number 10. Charging on down here, Gardener will be very eager for this traffic to steer clear. Vessels meanwhile be hopeful this traffic can keep them bunched together for as long as possible as Gardener looks inside, but Vessels gets the better run. It's free wide into turn 11. Vessels goes all in on the brakes, and Gardener being caught blindside. He finds the space in the end, but as they come up towards Nets Bend, that was some very late manoeuvring from Vessels, but to be fair, seizing on the situation with Farvo in the end really containing Vessels as they came out of Dunlop Corner and through turn 14 they go. Well, Gardener here is now going to be on the back of Vessels on corner exit, but gets a bit of a slow run off the corner exit as they make the way down the start-finish straight. But Gardener here will be unleashing all of that Italian stallion power as they build their way up through the gearbox. Now 2/10 is the gap, and as Gardener gets closer and closer, Vessels is going to defend this to the wall. Gardener meanwhile be made to look around the outside, but he's not going to give in here. He knows this is an opportunity to win today, and under braking they go, being made to look around the outside. Vessels will hold the inside apex door to door as they exit the corner, but Gardner is not done. He's coming back here, and Gardner retakes the lead of this race. Now heading out towards Coca-Cola corner, Barker backs off there. He doesn't want to be any part of this battle as they come on down. 15 minutes still to go by the time they clear the turn 6 hairpin, and as they do, Vessels is being made to work for this every step of the way. It was a brilliant bit of opportunism from Vessels, and as he looks up the inside, Gardner there once again having to deal with Vessels looking for a move in a late dash, but as he cuts back here, Vessels I think now will feel as though if he can outrun Gardner into Dunlop corner, he may have got this done, but Gardner's going to stay right when his wheel tracks. They make the way down, he defends there. Gardner tucks in, and as they come on through the right hander, now the impetus will be on Gardner to try and stay as close as possible as they make the way uphill. Gardner looks up the inside into 11, but Vessels is able to outbrake him. No such opportunity for Gardner. The brakes on that Porsche is a little bit stronger by comparison, and as they come up into Nets Bend now, can Vessels make the breakaway? That's what he's got to. He's got to get half a second clear before he clears Panasonic Bend. If he can, he'll be safe. If he can't, however, then Gardner's going to be right there with him once again, and indeed he is as they exit the final corner this time around. It's 3/10. They charge the man down. Both drivers will be using extra fuel here as well in order to try and absolutely gun it on the straight. Maxed out the revs of the engine as they head up towards turn number 1. And again, Vessels defends hard to the inside wall. Garner being made to look around the outside, but Garner pin him as much as possible before opening up the corner into the braking zone. And as they do, the NXTGEN Racing driver goes deep, but this time does not get it quite hooked up to the apex. Vessels defends and is able to hold on to lead this battle as they make the way towards Coca-Cola, but Garner here says, right, I'm going all in into turn number 3. It's side by side under braking here. Vessels hold the outside, Garner to the inside, but now will switch back. Vessels goes a bit deep. Garner meanwhile pulls into the middle row, make sure the Vessels doesn't have all the room, but in the end Vessels does hold him at bay, and I think that may be it, ladies and gentlemen. Unless Garner can find a run out of turn 6 into turn 10, it may be the end of this battle for the time being as they come off the corner, because Vessels now is opening up that gap. It's now 5/10 as they exit the hairpin, and as they come on down towards the right hander at Dunlop corner. I think Vessels has finally put his stake in the ground and made this count. But meanwhile, we look back to the battle for P6 in what is there, the gold class, and Johnny Tahar up the inside of Matt Shorter in a car that is definitely heavily wounded. I'm not quite sure what's happened to Shorter, but that Porsche has seen better days, there's no doubt about it. Albeit Shorter's going to try and come back at the Quad Dash Racing driver, and as they come up towards the left-hander of Coca-Cola corner, Tahar, I think, has got the deal done as they come on through at 100R now. There's no way back for Shorter other than to watch as the Mercedes driver starts to pull away. Or will it, as Shorter now looks into the inside of the hairpin, and no, in the end it's all about braking, and will no way back for Shorter at this point, although I say that as they exit the corner. Tahar extending the exit of the corner, Shorter taking the tighter exit, and therefore there is the proof of the fact that as they make the way onwards towards Dunlop corner, Tahar has got this move said and done. Just a little bit further behind me, or Tristan Engelstad we talked about earlier. Watch out for him, trying to find a way back on and through the order of the silver class. He's looking for the move here versus Ben Bennyworth for P8, and let's listen in. You can
here. There, the Mercedes riding on the rev limiter there, going into second gear on through the next bend, and as they head up towards Panasonic corner, well, now it's going to be a potential move here between Ingolstadt versus what is Bennyworth. But whilst all this is playing out, ladies and gentlemen, we are seeing a battle for the lead at the silver class up the road, which we will keep you updated on, between Sergio Gonzalez and Russell Fowler. Gonzalez still holding on to the lead of the class, albeit it is Fowler who is getting closer and closer. But me on your screen, Ingolstadt here in the tow, within a 10th as they make their way to the final part of the straight. Builds out to the either side here. Bennyworth does not defend it. I think thinking he can outbrake Ingolstadt, but then Ingolstadt goes all in, and now Bennyworth decides to cut it back. Ingolstadt with a classic pass up the inside into turn 1, makes P8 in the silver class, and now as they head in towards the left-hander Coca-Cola, can Bennyworth come back? No, he cannot, and Ingolstadt makes one more place. His next target will be Bingham, who is 8 seconds up the road, and Bingham's pace by comparison is similar to Ingolstadt at this point, albeit Ingolstadt is closing a tenth or two a lap. He'll need Bingham to make a mistake if he wants to be able to close up come the end of this race. But meanwhile, we come back to with the silver leaders here of Gonzalez versus Fowler, and we're going on to this lap. They battled into turn number 1 with Gonzalez coming out on top despite the endeavours of Fowler, and as they make their way through the final corner this time around, we look back from the rear of Gonzalez's car. Fowler within 3.5 tenths here as they build away from the gearbox as the tow does start to build up. But to be fair, as we said earlier, this Ferrari is no slouch. Ideally, it does need a tow in top gear in order to really maximise its top speed, but Fowler there is being made to work hard in terms of that BMW M4, and it's Medicine Grill right now is inching closer and closer. Gonzalez defends in the middle of the road. Fowler's going to look around the outside here as they go on through, but I think this is all ruse from Fowler. He's trying to get Gonzalez to outbrake himself intentionally and therefore tuck back on via a cutback, and indeed Fowler now within 2 tenths as they make their way up towards turn 3. But as they head into left-hander, still no way through for Fowler as he comes on down and around, and now it all is coming down to whether Gonzalez can simply just stick himself in the right place at the right time to make sure Fowler cannot make this move count as they make their way in towards turn number 6. But through the left-hander they go, and as they do, Fowler again cutting back, but look at how Gonzalez is driving here. He's trying to park on apex, but Fowler calls his bluff and goes around the outside to the inside of turn number 8. Now coming on down towards Dunlop corner, it is going to be Fowler who leads this pair going into the final part of the lap. You can see a flash of lights there from Gonzalez. I think that's more to distract rather than to try and convey a message. And as they head in towards turn number 11, Fowler has got this move done. And I think Russell Fowler at this point may be able to break away. If he can now the exit and next onto Panasonic, that gap may be enough and the BMW may be clear. But again, that Ferrari cannot be understating just how much speed it gains in a draft. And as they head up towards turn 14, Gonzalez now 6 tenths back as they come into the braking zone, tries to cut it tight here to get the best possible stiffer tow, and as they exit the final corner, will Gonzalez be able to close up? Gap 5.5 tenths as now we start to see the tow coming into effect. It does gain little by little, but I don't think Gonzalez has got enough here to come back as they make their way on down. They cross the start-finish line to go on to what for them is lap number 32. 9 minutes to go when they get to the first quarter of this lap, and as they do, Gonzalez not close enough. Meanwhile, behind in P3, it's Paul Scott who's ahead of Stefan Albanese, albeit Albanese a lap down P13 silver versus the third place silver class driver, and Scott right now trying to close up to Gonzalez and Fowler. He was faster than that previous lap, albeit we have to take into context what is with regards to the battling between the two of them, and as they head into turn number 3. Meanwhile, still trying to make some headway here is Gianni Tahoe, who looks up the inside of Daniel Fritz, and you can see the two of them battling. Meanwhile, Matt Shorter had to try and fend off Tristan Engelstad, with Engelstad the P8 silver class driver here, trying to find his way through for what is P16 overall versus Shorter. But if anything, Shorter right now putting down his stamp on the position, and as they come in towards turn number 3, through the left they go. Meanwhile, we do see Bois a little bit further up the road from these guys, trying to also look for a move here versus Tom Bingham for P12 overall. So we have got some overall battles going on here. It's not worth any points. It's only worth a little bit of pride on the line potentially. But Bois, your bronze leader, he is 4.3 seconds clear of Daniel Fritz, who has recently been passed by Gianni Tahar. And now Fritz will know that he needs to try and work with Tahar if he wants to close up to Bois in the closing stage of this race. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, after a poor run out the final corner, this is the battle for the overall lead and the gold class lead. Vessels versus Gardner. Gardner's coming back here, and as they make their way into turn 3, Gardner's going to retake the lead in this race as they come on through Coca-Cola.
how on earth did that all start is the big question. We will take a look back very shortly, but Gavan Gardener has come back into this race, and we thought Vessels have been able to break away and get this all said and done, but Vessels is not out of the woods yet, and neither is Gardener, it would seem. He's made the move, but to be fair now, Vessels is all over the back of him, and here's exactly what happened. Was a poor run out of Panasonic, and Gardner in the end looking to try and go around the outside. We've seen this so many times from Gardner, where he's been able to get the better run around the outside so long as he makes his braking point at turn 1, and as they made their way through turn number 2 into 3, this is where we caught up with the racing on live camera, and going into that left-hander, Gardner has positioned himself well, and Vessels turned in to find he had to back off. He had not been able to clear Gardner in that drag race. As they head out the next bend and up towards Panasonic, well, that gap now at half a second here, and well, it's tyre now starting to become a big quotient in this battle, in the fact we do know the Ferrari very aggressive on its tyres, and the Porsche still can be quite aggressive, and that time around it was a better run out the corner of Panasonic for Gardner. The gap 6.5 tenths, and Gardner is making haste here. He is starting to break away. And I wonder whether Vessels, perhaps with a mistake, might now start to be biting off a bit more tyre life than he can chew. With the time remaining, we are only 6 minutes away from the checkered flag, and Vessels right now definitely does seem to need to get himself back into this battle, unless he's backing off slightly and just letting the car cool down and setting himself up for a last lap battle or the last couple of laps, because you have to keep in mind tyre temperature a big factor here as I head in towards turn number 3. But as the drivers that come on through, we do look to those live weather conditions on the circuit, and well, to give you an idea, at this time we do have what is an ambient temperature 80 degrees centigrade at 25 degree track temperature, so still that track temperature relatively cool, and therefore these tyres can be pushed hard, but still if you push the tyres too hard it can come back to haunt you in the long haul. As Vessels comes on down towards turn number 10 very shortly, still there within half a second of Gardner, and as they roll on through, meanwhile we look back to further battling down the order, and this is Lee Horn versus what is David Camano for P5 in the silver class, and these two, they have closed up to one another quite significantly over the last couple of laps, with Horn catching at 2 to 3 tenths a lap, but now he finds himself in the dirty air of Camano. It looks as though that progress is being stinted somewhat as they head up towards turn number 6. Into left-hander they go, and Horn will feel as though if he can make these cutback runs and get the corner set up to perfection, then he will have that opportunity to look for a move. But as they head down towards Dunlop Corner, not able to look for one at the moment, as meanwhile we are hearing that John Meredith has been involved in a spin at P8 in the bronze class, and in fact he has put himself back up to pace. And while speaking of an incident for John Meredith, I believe we can get a replay of what exactly happened for the P8 driver, and here it is. In fact, coming down towards Dunlop Corner there, and as he made his way into the apex, as he hit the apex, he does, but it unsettles the rear of the car, and the car goes on round, and he does hit the bollards there, which denote the closure of the chicane. And as the Meredith racing driver got himself back together, what a difficult moment there, and well, it has been a difficult day of racing at Fuji Speedway for the Briton. We're returning to your live pictures. Horn falling away from Camano on the exit there of Panasonic, going onto the start-finish straight. But as we look from them back to your overall lead battle, this is Gardner versus Vessels as they head on through turns 8, 9 and 10, and with the NXTGEN Racing pink driver still trying to stay clear. Vessels 4 tenths behind and giving it everything he can in order to close up, and as they make their way uphill into with turn number 11, they do have Nigel Stock 4 tenths in front of them. Gardner will be hoping that Stock does move aside, and he does indeed, as there is Stock on the distant left-hand side of your picture. But now Gardner does have the quandary of the fact he doesn't have anybody to give him the toe down the start-finish straight, and Vessels here looks up the inside into Panasonic, but could this be a move too soon for the fact that Gardner will drop to P2, but in return he'll have all the toe plus the Ferrari straight line speed advantage in order to come back at Vessels as they head down towards turn number 1. Now will Vessels do the same thing again, which is defend the inside wall, or will he decide to change things up, knowing that Gardner is so strong on the outside of the opening hairpin? Well, no, he does pin it to the wall. Gardner meanwhile pulls out a bit early, and this is going to give Vessels more room to the apex. I think Gardner has come out too early. In fact, you can see the Vessels using the wider corner circumference now in order to defend here, and he can see how he can make Gardner stay behind him. He just needs to be given some space, and as they head up towards turn 3, I think Gardner there with a mistake in letting Vessels come back on through, and as they head in towards Coca-Cola, Vessels now holds the lead this race. They're on lap number 36, and after this lap, they may get another 2 in based on time remaining. But either way, Vessels now holds the lead position, and I think Gardener will have to work extremely hard in order to come back, given the fact he'll need to be within 4 attempts on the exit of the final corner. But as they make the way down towards Dunlop, meanwhile we look to the battle for P5 in the silver class between what is Devon Kamano and Lee Horn. Kamano defending on the inside here, Horn looking around the outside. It's a battle under the brakes. Kamano defends hard versus the Porsche driver, and it does look like Kamano may be struggling for tyre life now, given the fact that Horn is closing up through the corners. And as they head into Coca-Cola, it's going to be Horn onto the inside here versus Kamano, gives him the space and tries to battle it on the outside, but there's only really one place you want to be, and that's on the inside of the apex, and Lee Horn does take that P5 for the time being, albeit we could see a further battle here before it's all said and done, as Kamano does look to come on the inside there into turn 6. He goes around the braking, but Horn is not daunted and takes his line, and Kamano now made to fall back to 6 tenths off. As they head down towards Dunlop corner, looking from them back to what is your leaders overall, this gold class lead, which we continue to be infatuated with, as it is a huge battle between the two of them and two of the biggest names at the front of the gold class championship going into tonight. Vessels defends hard here, and Gardner looking to the outside, and Gardner realising his mistake. Interestingly there, you notice this time he pins Vessels for as long as he can before the braking zone towards that inside wall, and it works immediately. You can see Gardner's just able to get the better run over the opening hairpin, but Vessels defends well there, cuts it to the inside of Coca-Cola. And as they make the way through 100R, we look back from the rear of the number 27 Porsche 992 as they make the way up the hill. We believe this is the last lap of the race with a minute left to go on the clock, albeit it will be very close. But there you can see just how close Gardner's getting, and Gardner will now know he needs to be within 3 tenths on the corner exit Panasonic if he wants to try and draft his way through to victory, albeit ideally he needs to be 2 tenths out of the final corner and have the better exit as well. As they come through Dunlop, 45 seconds left on the clock, they may just sneak in 1 more lap, but we are going to stay with this battle all the way to the finish. It's the closest battle on circuit, ladies and gentlemen, with most of the battling now having died down, but still the battle for the lead is going to go the full distance. 30 seconds left on the clock, 1 more corner on this lap. We will most likely squeeze in 1 more lap. It is going to be excruciatingly close. Speaking of which, Vessels there, nails the run through Panasonic. Garner's not able to close up enough. 18 seconds left on the clock. I think we will just about get another lap in. If we don't, it is going to be very close. 10 seconds to go here. Will we see what is a 38th lap? We will indeed, as they go on to 1 more lap. White flag now does wave. Vessels leads. Now this is the most important turn 1 of their lives as they come down towards the braking zone. Vessels defends hard here. Garner does pin him initially. Goes around the outside once more. Garner rinsing and repeating the tactic that worked so well. But he goes too deep, and as a result he can't finish the move. And as they make the way onwards towards turn number 3, going in towards Coca-Cola, well, could that be it? Because Garner just exhausted his one opportunity. Will we ride on board here with the Ferrari 488 Evo driver, and as close as he can stay as they make the way down through 100R. He will not want to let that gap get any further than 3 tenths at any point. He's going to be able to be gluing himself to the back of that Porsche all the way. And as they come down through the hairpin, well, it's a good run off the corner from Vessels. Garner meanwhile having to fight with power oversteer. The tyres have just not got enough grip anymore, and as they come down towards Dunlop, I think that might be it, unless Vessels makes a mistake or Garner has an absolute blinding run through what is the final sector. Going uphill they go, 4.5 tenths, they break the way on him into the right hand. They've got high Santos in front of them, and Santos right now, the blue flags will be waving, and Vessels will want him to move aside. This is boxing and Vessels in. Garner's able to take a better run. This could change things completely as they make the way up the hill in towards the final corner. It's going to be Vessels ahead of Gardner, but who is going to come out on top? And you can see there Vessels parking the car in apex. He doesn't want Gardner to get on through, and as they charge one down, it's 4 tenths, and I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think Gardner's pace has been blunted. The checker flag waves, and Vessels is going to make it 2 wins out of 2 here today for CSA Peak as he crosses the line. Your winner overall and in the gold class head of Gavan Gardener P2 for NXTGEN Racing Peak, Gaz Williams P3 in class, and then it will be Adam Delman who comes on through to take P4 overall in the gold class ahead of Akram Zanu, who comes on through to complete the gold top 5 and that overall. But then we have a 13-second gap to this man as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, and it has been a deserved drive to victory, but he's found his way on through, and Russell found Fowler takes the silver class win for Performance Link Esports, ahead of Sergio Gonzalez, who comes on through runner-up, and it will be Paul Scott a further 10 seconds back, who rounds off the silver podium there, ahead of Alfonso Marin, who just missed out on the podium, but P4 in the silver class for Gavan Motorsport, and it'll be Lee Horn who completes the silver top 5, ahead of David Camano, but behind them, taking P12 overall, it's another win for Jordan Bavois. Fuji has worked out fantastically for Ferrari driver, and he takes another bronze class win to make it 2 out of 2 here today, ahead of Jahani Tahar, who then crosses the line. P13 overall ahead of Tom Bingham, who holds off Tristan Engelstad to line for P7 silver class, and it'll be Daniel Fritz, who is your runner-up in the bronze class, and a great day for the Whiskey Runners Racing driver, double podium for him. Matt Shorter just behind, and it's Ben Bennyworth ahead of Nestor Delafleur, followed by what is Mark Sykes, who rounds off the bronze podium in a long anticipated return to the podium for the next-gen racing driver in the 666 Ferrari, and it'll be Victor Shimaro, who finishes just outside the top 20, P21 overall, P8 in the gold class for Gavan Motorsport Yellow, and then it'll be Craig Tiddleston, who comes home P4 bronze category for FR20 Sim Racing, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe completes all of our finishers on the lead lap. But what a race it has been, and as Stefan Vessels makes his way into the pit lane, I think he has been absolutely worked to the bone with regards to the battling with Gavan Gardener, and well, Gardner will know it wasn't to be his win here today, but the Next Gen Racing Pink driver giving it everything, and well, nothing can be taken from him. I definitely think we have now seen Gardner's championship credentials come alive, as we have Vessels and then Russell Fowler in what was a move to remember the number 18 driver for Performance Link Esports to take the win over Sergio Gonzalez, but nothing between the two of them, as he runs out of fuel there before he can make his way into the pit lane, so he's had to be towed to the pit. And Paul Scott there, third place on the silver podium, and another great showing from the 85 Next Gen Racing red driver, and knowing that the results will continue to come his way. But really the biggest and noticeable change here in the bronze class, ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Fritz, Whiskey Runners Racing, absolutely delivering here today. And well, perhaps it's just the Oceania region being a little bit closer to home for the Australian, but either way, number 31 driver making a double podium, and along the way really enjoying the racing, albeit Jordan Bavois being a class of his own in both races, but Fritz holding on, and Mark Sykes, as we said earlier, making a return to the podium. And indeed, it has been a long time coming for the Englishman, but today it has been his day in the feature race. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our second race of the day, and let's take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after 60 minutes of fast and furious racing, Stefan Vessels taking the overall win for CSA Pink, and with it the gold class win by 3.5 tenths over Next Gen Racing Pink's Gavan Gardener P2, and Gaz Williams completing your top 3 there. A 2-3 for Next Gen Racing, with Adam Delwent just behind P4 there, and then Akram Zanuin completing the top 5 for the gold and overall categories, the privateer, ahead of your silver class winner Russell Fowler, who for Performance Link Esports actually dug in deep, but found a way through to take the class win, 9 tenths clear of KFM Motorsport Yellow's Sergio Gonzalez. Paul Scott, P8 there, finishing off the silver podium for the Next Gen Racing, ahead of Alfonso Marin, with Lee Horn completing the top 5 there, with a late move on David Camano, also enabling him to take the final spot inside the overall top 10. David Camano, P11, best of the rest, P in that position, ahead of Jordan Bavois, P12 overall, but more importantly for him, the win in the bronze class, making it 2 wins out of 2 for the French privateer. And then we have to look to P16 for your run-up in the bronze class, Whiskey Runners Racing, Daniel Fritz, and then we look further afield, ladies and gentlemen, to P20 overall for Mark Sykes for Next Gen Racing, who with that P20 completes the bronze podium of Bavois, Fritz and Sykes. Then looking on through to our final lead lap finisher, Craig Tiddleston, P22 out of our 35 car field, and then finishing a lap down, Nigel Stock, Matthew Addy, Jack Barker, Elwin Sykes, Stefan Albanese Senior, Alex Rogenbuck in P28, and also what was John Meredith, Wesley Lewin, who completes the top 30, and Sean Scutto, who finished P31 in an unfortunate day of racing today for the CSA Blue driver in the number 12, but still plenty of racing to come, and he's definitely shown his title credentials with that pole lap, which was to be desired by many other drivers, and then finishing 3 laps down, Jorge Santos and Davide Favo, with the 2 retirements of Jonathan Cook, finishing 17 laps from the end, and therefore I do believe will be classified as a finisher, given the fact he did retire with over half the race distance complete, and Miguel Garcia, who in the end only managed to complete was 18 laps, and because he did not complete over half the race distance, therefore will be classified as a non-finisher.
And then coming on to the individual class finishing positions, starting with the golds, we can see Stefan Vessels taking that win for CSA Pink over Next Gen Racing Pink's Gavan Gardener by 3.5 tenths, within a further 3.5 seconds to Gaz Williams in P3 for Next Gen Racing, and then Adam Delwent just behind his teammates in P4 by a further 5 seconds. Akram Zanoon doing well to finish P5 after a dismal sprint race, but battling his way on through the privateer ahead of Gianni Tahar, and then Matt Shorter and Victor Shamaro completing those who finish on the lead lap ahead of the two retirees of Jonathan Cook and Miguel Garcia. And then we come on to the silver class. And as we can see here in the silver class, Russell Fowler, your winner by it was 9 tenths in the end over Sergio Gonzalez, with the Performance Link Esports driver managed to outperform the Kevin Motorsport yellow driver over a long distance, but nothing between them for the most part. Then Paul Scott P3 for Next Gen Racing. Further 2 seconds behind, Alfonso Marin just outside the podium, but still we pleased at P4, ahead of Lee Horn and David Camano. Then Tom Bingham holding off Tristan Engelstad to the line, with Ben Bennyworth and Nestor Delafu completing at your top 10. Best of the rest P11, Matthew Addy, who in the end did finish a lap down for Next Gen Racing with Sam Cases UK, ahead of Made for Racing's Jack Barker, with Stefan Albanese Senior completing at the silver standings. Then coming on to the bronze class, we can see here Jordan Baywart taking the win the privateer by 11.1 seconds over Whiskey Runners Racing's Daniel Fritz, with Mark Seitz completing at the third place run there, and with it the bronze podium for Next Gen Racing a further 14.5 seconds behind. Craig Titherston, the last of your bronze drivers to finish on the lead lap, P4, and what was an absolutely brilliant drive there and recovery for the FR20 Sim Racing driver after a difficult start today. And then finishing a lap down, Nigel Stock, Elwin Sykes, Alex Roggenbuck, John Meredith, Wesley Lewin and Sean Scooter to complete the top 10, and then finishing at 3 laps down, Jorge Santos and Davide Favo, who complete your bronze stands P11, P12 in the class. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our racing for today. But we're not quite concluded with today's broadcast, because, of course, coming up in approximately 10 to 15 minutes' time will be our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And, well, we'll be interested to hear their thoughts on what have been 2 absolutely difficult races at the Fuji International Speedway, but for many, very successful races. So don't go anywhere. You won't miss the interviews that are coming up shortly. We'll see you soon. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is now time for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And today, we've got a variety of interviews across the classes, including that from the Gold class, Gianni Tahar from Quad Dash Racing. We'll then be going to the Silver class for Next Gen Racing's Paul Scott, before following up with Crest Autosports, Nigel Stott from the Bronze class, and then coming back to Russell Fowler in the Silver class to talk about his performances today for Performance Link Esports. Without further ado, let's get underway with our first interviewee, and let's hear from Gianni Tahar, who had mixed fortunes all day, but definitely didn't give up at any point. We can see many of you in the YouTube chat in particular really cheering him on, and as he does join me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Gianni. It looked tough out there. A P8 in qualifying, a P7 in the sprint, and a P6 in the feature race. You battled hard all the way through. A positive end to the day, or do you feel as though Fuji's been a bit of a struggle?
Well, good evening as well, Paul. Yeah, it was quite tough, but yeah, last time at Sebring it was even more tough. So I experienced worse, but yeah, sprint race amazing. If you saw the teamwork we did was amazing. We both worked together and find the gap to overtake the person in front of us. Feature race, unfortunately, got crashed out twice. What I thought, I saw it back. I think yeah, it was not my mistake, but can happen. And yeah, great recovery drive from P27 I think to P13 overall, and I heard now P7 in the gold, so that's great.
Oh, indeed. And well, you've really been resilient today. And let's start off with the qualifying session. Qualifying looked quite tough at the front of the field, albeit Stefan Vessel's dominated at the very top of the gold class. But you put it P8 on the grid overall and in your own respective class. Was qualifying a good session for yourself, or was there more time out there?
Yeah, I think in the practice session I did a lot of 34.9, so I could have gone higher, but yeah, over Stephen Wessels we don't talk. He's an alien on itself. We don't compete with him. But yeah, for me the goal is every time in top 10, and yeah, P8, amazing. Would have gone higher, but yeah, it's a sprint and not based on the qualifying.
Oh, indeed. And then going into the sprint race, we did see from yourself and a good number of the Mercedes drivers able to make a lot of progress, particularly on that start-finish straight. And in the end, finishing P7 in the class, like you say, working with your fellow teammate from Quad Dash Racing, Tristan Engelstad. A positive race to start the day off.
Yeah, amazing. It was what I said in Sebring. It didn't went well. The hopes were high this time to just be safe. Lost maybe a couple of positions at the start. That was what we planned, just not force ourselves out of the race, what happened a couple of times. So yeah, this time just focus on getting through the first couple of laps, and yeah, then work our way up, and this time it worked out pretty well.
And in making it work, we've seen that this Fuji circuit, it's a very aggressive circuit on tyres, and particularly on low-speed corners, something the Mercedes doesn't necessarily like. How have you found adapting using this car around the Japanese circuit?
Blood, sweat and tears, I think, nothing more. Yeah, we even had conversation already about maybe switching to the Porsche, because the Mercedes is indeed maybe a ship in those corners. But yeah, it is, even if it is a very slippery, oversteery car at some points, with a lot of practice, it can be a very good car in the end. And yeah, in the feature race, we also had a couple of times that on the straights we could overtake the Porsches, and yeah, they outbrake us very well. Sometimes they even were on the rear bumper, where we expect like, okay, brake pretty late, but yeah, our exit speed was a lot of times superior, luckily, and yeah, we could overtake a lot on the start-finish straight.
And then coming on to the feature race, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the Mercedes in hand, particularly versus the Porsche, we saw you have a very difficult feature race, like you say, being knocked down the order twice but not giving up, and recovering to a P6 finish in the class in the end. It must be some valuable points for yourself.
Yeah, at the moment I was, I think, not bottom, but maybe one place above it. So yeah, got a couple of points now on the board, but yeah, for me also the team standing is very important, and I think we managed both very well results. The teammate even getting behind me, even if he started, I think, around P22. So yeah, great points for the team, great points for myself, and yeah, I hope to get a couple of more positions eventually in this class.
Well, we do look forward to see you climbing up through the ranks indeed. Some absolutely stellar pace from yourself and your teammate Tristan here at the Fuji Speedway. And in a week's time, well, not in a week's time, in 2 weeks' time, I should say, we make our way to the other part of Japan for the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit as part of our double header. How are you feeling for our first endurance race round of the season?
Yeah, very nervous. Sprint race is doable. The feature race is also getting used to it. Yeah, I have maybe done one big race in the past with my teammate. So yeah, now we're doing it solo. So 2 hours driving in one session behind each other. Yeah, that's quite extensive. But yeah, what we also did for Fuji, we will practice together. My teammate, I think, cannot participate in the next session, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, we'll bring in a lot of hours so that the 2 hours feel like not breaking a sweat. That's the goal.
Well, we do look forward to seeing you both out, well, in fact, yourself out in circuit, I should say, despite your teammates' absence in 2 weeks' time at the Suzuka circuit, and how all that blood, sweat and tears does come to fruition. But just before we do let you go, Gianni, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a special thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, especially my teammate. He was amazing this race, of course. You for the amazing commentary as well. Yeah, the guys who crashed me out, also a shout out. No, just kidding. It's racing. That's part of it. And yeah, the top guys of the gold class, they are insane. If I can ever get close to them, that will be a dream. So really shout out to them how good they are at the moment.
Well, you never know. One day the dream may become a reality. But until then, thank you for joining me in the interview room. Congratulations on what have been 3 positive sessions today from qualifying through to your 2 races. And we look forward to seeing plenty more from you at Suzuka 2 weeks from now.
Thanks, mate. Looking forward to it as well.
Have a great evening. So hearing there from Gianni Tahar, the gold class driver from Quad Dash Racing, and I absolutely love his positivity. I'm not going to lie, there's absolute spirit going into the interview and talking about all the positives from the racing today, and the fact that even when it did go wrong in the feature race, able to bounce back and working with his teammate, and that really seems to be at the core of Quad Dash Racing. Himself and Tristan Engelhard racing Engelstad, I should say, racing together and looking to get as many points as possible on the board in order to win that team's championship. And well, with the pace coming together, you never know what could happen. We've got a 2-hour thriller and showdown at Suzuka in 2 weeks' time, and well, Gianni's going to be flying the flag solo for the team, but you never know what could happen, and perhaps we could see his first top 5 in the endurance race. Well, we'll have to wait and find out then, but definitely I think the practice will go in, and that Mercedes is going to look strong. Now coming on to our second interview of this evening, we'll very shortly be hearing from Paul Scott in the silver class for NXTGEN Racing and his thoughts on what has been a positive evening in the feature race, but perhaps a little bit less so in the qualifying and the sprint race sessions. But still, he can tell us all about that himself as he gets ready to join us in the interview room, and definitely having to work his way through the field over the course of the proceedings today. But as he does join me now in the interview room, good evening to you, Paul, and what an evening it has been. The qualifying session didn't seem to go right, and then the sprint race ended up in a bit of difficulty, but in the feature race, you made that forward start work and come home with a class podium. A good end to the day, or do you feel as though there was more on the table at Fuji today?
Hi, mate. Well, yeah, I was about 5 or 6 tenths off the qualifying time that I did in the practice session, so I was quite disappointed with that. And then, yeah, in the sprint race, it was always going to be difficult at this track. Such low corners. There's 4 or 5 really slow corners on this track, so lots of people will bunch up. And yeah, just one incident where I felt like somebody went up my inside a bit too abrupt, and then obviously somebody else had been in ahead of me, and I just got collected. So I literally ended up about 2 laps down, I think, and then coming into the feature race, I knew I was going to be starting near the front, and in fact at the front, I think, of the silver class, and I knew I had to get some points. So yeah, I was made up with the feature race.
Well, it's been a challenging night for yourself, but you've been able to fight through the challenge. And coming back to the qualifying session, you were saying about feeling as though you were multiple attempts down on your target time. Where do you feel it went wrong in qualifying? Was it perhaps the track conditions, just not being able to find space on the circuit? Just take us through where you think it didn't work out.
I think mainly my track positioning. You really do need that toe down the main straight, and I just didn't put myself in a position to get a decent toe. So it's all on me. I've got to get out at the right time, and I've got to put myself in the right position on the track. So yeah, it's my mistake, but I think that was the main thing.
Going from that mistake, then not finding the right position. Going into turn number 1 in the sprint race, we did see multiple 3 and 4 wides. I do believe, in fact, you might have found yourself in the middle of a 4 wide at one point through the hairpin, but it looked a relatively clean start for a circuit which can have a reputation for instance into the opening corner.
Yeah, it went quite well. We all had a bit of a scare after the first round at Sebring, and a lot of the drivers realised that wasn't right, and I think we've put an end to that now, and yeah, it's just about transitioning from the qualifying pace and making sure that you just understand your braking point for the race compared to the qualifying is vastly different. We're talking about 100 meters before it sometimes with how the cars bunch up, and you just have to anticipate and sometimes just cross your fingers.
Oh, indeed, I can relate to that in the fact that sometimes you just got to put your faith in the others around you, do everything you can to avoid getting caught up in it. And well, you didn't get caught up in too much on that open lap necessarily, but later on, whilst you were building pace, you did get caught up in a couple of instances, but still carried on to finish the race.
Yeah, it's something that we try and encourage at NXTGEN. Even if things go wrong, just keep going, because those laps that you do are valuable, even if it is driving around on your own. And to be honest, I'm quite used to it. In the sense that when we do the 24-hour races, you can be driving around in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning for about 2 hours on your own sometimes, but it's just something you've got to do. Just get used to it.
Indeed, that does make sense. I'm sure that will inspire a good number of individuals tuning in tonight in terms of never giving up and making sure to get your head down even if you are lonely on circuit. And well, the reward was starting towards the front in the feature race. Given the fact you were starting towards the front of the silver class, did you have a particular strategy in mind, or did you have to tweak your original strategy for the pit in order to try and capitalise on it?
The main strategy was just to literally try and hold on to the gold class drivers for as long as possible, and I managed to do that for quite a while. Got ahead of a couple of them, and then unfortunately one of the gold drivers, I can't remember who it was, decided to battle with me when I really just wanted him to just work together to try and build that gap to the cars behind. It was actually working quite well with Lee. He was in the silver class with myself. We decided, let's just no battle and let's just try and pull away from the group that was behind. That was the plan, and then yeah, I just managed to find myself in a nice rhythm, and it just went really well.
In that rhythm, we did see a couple of moments where you had to really duke it out with the Mercedes. We've seen the Porsche really has been one of the stronger cars of this season, given its cornering capabilities and also its ability on the brakes. But I suspect you were perhaps hoping there was a couple more ponies under the engine versus the Mercedes drivers.
Yeah, I've been quite surprised. In pre-season testing, the Porsche, being a new car, was definitely the car to be. But then, I don't know, maybe I've overlooked some of the other cars. I mean, the BMW, the Mercedes, they're both really quick down the straight. You find yourself in the tow behind and they're pulling away from you. But then the Porsche is really good on the brakes, in the corners it's fantastic. So it's the even out over the lap. But yeah, when you're doing long distance driving like this, I mean, the feature races for an hour plus long, the long straights can sometimes be the better thing to have.
Well, still being able to find your way to deal with the Mercedes and other cars. You finish P3 on the podium in the silver class in the feature race, and well, with that result, some good points bagged. And now looking ahead to 2 weeks' time when we conclude the Japanese doubleheader at Suzuka's Grand Prix circuit. How are you feeling for the first endurance race round of the season?
The Fuji and I don't like Japan. I don't like these races. So I don't like Suzuka and I don't like this one, but the more I drive these tracks, the more I'll be able to understand them. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the next track, so I'm definitely going to need to put the hours in.
Oh dear, it sounds as though the Japanese trip is turning into a bit of a grueling grind for yourself, but you never know what could come out in 2 weeks' time. But just before we do let you go, Paul, is there anybody you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, yourself, mate. Thank you for the commentary. It's been fantastic. And actually, Stefan Albanese, about 25 minutes to 30 minutes into the race after I'd come out of the pits, we ended up coming up behind Stefan, and unfortunately he was a lapped car. But once he'd let me get past him, he actually stayed behind me and he pushed me on. I don't know how to explain it, but he kept me honest, and because there was a couple of cars in the silver class right behind me who were catching me. I'd ruined my tyres, and Stefan just kept me there, kept me going, and yeah, he made sure I was concentrating and pushing right to the end. And that's the reason why I managed to hold on to that position. So yeah, I said thank you in the chat to him.
Well, I do think Stefan will appreciate that special mention, and it's great to hear how he could keep you focused despite the fact you had drivers catch you, including the likes of Alfonso Marin and Lee Horn. But with that, Paul, thank you for joining me in the interview room. What a set of races you've had today, and particularly that third place in the feature race. Maybe a bit of a struggle with the Japanese circuits, but we still look forward to seeing you out of the circuit in 2 weeks' time at Suzuka. But until then, have a lovely evening, and thank you once again.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
So here and there from Paul Scott, the silver class next-gen racing driver, who today really having to battle against it, qualifying 6/10 off of his original target time, and in the end just not finding the right space in the circuit to pick up the toe and deliver the qualifying lap he so wanted to achieve. And then going into the sprint race, a clean start, and 2 instants later on saw him put down multiple laps, but still staying in it to win it, and therefore being able to capitalise on the reverse class order grid going into the feature race, which when he was rewarded with a consistent drive, albeit perhaps aided by a little bit of a motivator from Stefan Albanese behind. But either way, a P8 overall and a 3rd place in the class, and therefore on the podium, means that today has not been a wasted day for Paul Scott. But if anything, he's got himself some major points on the board, and those could be invaluable going into round number 3 in 2 weeks' time at Suzuka. But coming from our second interview then, ladies and gentlemen, to our third interview of this evening, we're going to be hearing from the bronze class driver now of Nigel Stock very shortly. A driver who today has really battled hard inside the top 5 of the bronze class through and through, achieving 2 P4s, 1 in qualifying and 1 in the sprint race, and then achieving a P5 in the feature race. Not quite able to mount a challenge for a podium at the very end, but still at the same time, it did look as though he enjoyed the racing from start to finish. And as he joins me now in the interview room, good evening to you, Nigel. And what a pair of races it have been for you today, in the fact you've been able to pick up 2 top 5 finishes, a 4th in the sprint, a 5th in the featuring class. Fuji seems to have worked for you. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we may be experiencing a slight technical issue with Nigel's microphone at the moment. We are just going to see if we can resolve that.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's coming through loud and clear.
I was just saying, not really, because I feel like I should have got at least 1st or 2nd in the feature race. But well, there's something I'll explain in a minute. But it was very silly, shall I say?
Oh, goodness me. Well, starting off from the beginning in terms of qualifying, we did see a P4 from yourself on the grid, P24 overall. Looks like the lap time kept coming, but my gut feeling says perhaps there was a little bit more time out there at the end of the session.
Could have been, maybe. Just sometimes it's just difficult to get the space with people, and then sometimes you make a little mistake or something like that. So it's always not quite so easy to get the lap times done. So, but I mean, I was quite happy with it. Really, it was a lot better than last time. So at least I was a bit more up there.
Well, it was a good lap to get you right up towards the front of the bronze class, albeit Sean Scudder's lap a little bit clearer of the field, but you're all able to come back together going into the sprint race. Speaking of the sprint, looked as though it was very tight and tense on the opening couple of laps, but after that things calmed down and you could go racing.
Pretty much, yeah. It was going quite well. I think I was up to about second, and then I think it was Paul Scott got knocked round, and then I don't know what happened, but I don't know what his name is now. Someone in an Audi was like alongside, and he just came across and caught me and spun me. I half spun round and went off the track, and then when I came back on again, I'd got a little bit of damage, but more that I'd sort of just lost the chance of getting a podium then, and then was more annoying. And then, well, then there was a great battle at the end of it, which was quite a lot of fun, but I didn't win that battle, but it was still, that was good fun at the end.
Well, it's always good to hear that you're enjoying the battles. And speaking of battles with the BMW M4, we've seen here today that the Porsche really flowed well in the latter half of the lap with the flying corners and also the low-speed apexes. The Mercedes seemed to be an absolute monster on that start-finish straight, but the BMW seemed to do well everywhere, plus also on that straight, it held its own. How did it feel for you in the M4 versus the other cars on the grid?
That's the exact reason why I picked it, because I feel like it's the best all-round car. Out of the like the Mercedes is like, I've driven it past years, it is good down the straight, but it's just so clumsy in the corner, especially slow speed corners. So you're always sort of having to try and gain back what you can. Where with the BM, it's very easy to sort of drive and you just drive relaxed, and it's just easy to sort of get the speed out of it compared to what you have to do where you feel like you have to try a lot harder with the Mercedes to get any speed out of it.
Well, keeping in mind that all-round nature and the reason why you went up with the car, going into the feature race, finding yourself starting from towards the back of the bronze class and some early progress and then battling for the lead, but it went a bit wrong after that.
Yeah, well, I was sort of just cruising at the time. I think I was behind Tom Bingham, I think it was, and I was just sort of coasting, really, just trying to look after the tyres, look after the fuel, wasn't really pushing. Was doing quite well. Came in for my pit stop. Thought I'd passed my pit spot. Realised that so I stopped. Well, basically almost stopped. Went to see where it was, and then realised it was in front of me. And just as I went to start moving forward again, I ran out of fuel, so I had to tow. So I had just feel really silly and really disappointed to do something so stupid, to throw away what I at least could have been maybe top 2, if not win, on such a silly, stupid mistake. I mean, well, it's just silly.
Well, that is very unfortunate, but I'm sure it's a mistake you'll learn from and not repeat any time soon, because the pace you did have in the future, like you say, was winning pace, if not definitely top 2. But still, looking ahead from today, showing a lot of pace, and also that you're challenging for the race wins. And in 2 weeks' time, we head to Suzuka's Grand Prix circuit for the first endurance race of the season. How are you feeling for it?
Well, as long as I don't run out of fuel again, I'm not too bad. Hopefully, hopefully, it should be it'd be good to do one of the 2-hour races, because they're always quite interesting and always a different sort of way of driving. So like just trying to stay out of trouble for the first hour is always best, and then see where you are for the next hour, and then try and see, hopefully get some good points. But yeah, it's just disappointing for the championship as well, because I feel like I've thrown some good points away there with something that I should have been more careful of, really. It's just been maybe been a bit too relaxed in the BMW and just not paying attention enough. But I've definitely learned from it. I ain't gonna do that again. I'd rather run down the other end of the pit lane and then run out before I stop. But I think we should be quite good at Suzuka. I feel like the BMW will be quite strong there again. So probably the Porsche will be really good there. So it'll be certainly interesting.
Well, we do look forward to seeing how you get on in 2 weeks' time at Suzuka. But before we let you go, Nigel, is there anybody you'd like to give it a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Well, yourself for the broadcast, for Crystal at the Sport, and for Ben Bennyworth being my teammate, and the bloke that put the fuel in the car. So probably too busy laughing to put it in, but he managed to do it. And for Next Gen for doing great leagues again, and yeah, and for anyone that's watching, and yeah, and for everyone that's racing.
Well, Nigel, it's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room as always. Congratulations on your results today, even if a little bit of a mistake cost you dearly in the feature race, but still plenty of rounds to go, and we definitely look forward to seeing you out there fighting for the win in the endurance race at Suzuka 2 weeks from now. But until then, have a fantastic evening, and thank you once again.
And you, thank you. Bye.
So hearing there from Nigel Stott, our bronze class driver, who today will pushing hard in qualifying and achieving a P4 there to follow it up with a P4 in the sprint race. Felt his own momentum was going well, and then the feature race finding his way at the front of the field and definitely on course for a top two, if not the win, only to then reveal he made a basic mistake in the pit lane. But to be fair, anybody can make mistakes like that. And in terms of just running out of fuel just shy of his pit box after stopping, well, it's a mistake he'll learn from, no doubt about that. And well, next time he comes around into that situation, it won't happen twice. And I definitely reckon he is on course for his first win of the season very soon. And well, could it be at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit? We'll have to wait and find out. But meanwhile, speaking of waiting, and he's been patiently waiting for some time, it's our final interviewee of Russell Fowler, who's coming up very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, the silver class driver today bringing home the win in the feature race after a hard-fought podium in the sprint and a fourth place in qualifying in the class. He's definitely had to go all in order to achieve his targets today. But let's hear his perspective on what has been a challenging but enjoyable night, most likely, for the Performance Link esports driver, and all under the eyes of team boss Tom Binger, who's join the grid. But as he gets ready to join me now, we are just waiting for confirmation he's good in the interview room. In fact, he is now. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Russell Fowler joins me in the interview room. Russell, what an evening for yourself. It looked challenging in all three sessions, but with a fourth place in qualifying translating into a third in class in the sprint, and then going one step further to take the win in the feature race, despite the intentions of Sergio Gonzalez to keep you at bay. You must be absolutely proud to have achieved these results.
Absolutely. Hi, Paul. Yeah, pleasure to be here. I'm absolutely buzzing about tonight. I didn't expect to get such a good result, especially after quali didn't really go as well as I'd hoped. But yeah, very chuffed with that feature race. Very happy.
Oh, indeed. Breaking it down, hearing about you saying about qualifying, not quite achieving the lap you so desired. Where do you feel you lost out in qualifying? Because to be P4 in a class that is very close at this time, I'd say it's an achievement. I think you felt as though perhaps a pole position was on the cards.
Maybe in practice I was doing some good laps. My benchmark is how close I can get to my teammate Jono's time. He's generally half a second quicker a lap, and until yesterday I had a better lap time, so I kind of had an inkling that I might do well, but I heard from some of the other guys that they weren't quite able to match the practice time in quali, and it was the same for me. I was maybe sort of 3/10 off where I'd hoped to be, but by the sounds of it, it was the same for everyone, so I can't really complain.
Oh, indeed. It does seem as though those conditions transition from practice to qualifying may have thrown a couple off, but still, with the result you're able to pick up in qualifying going into the race, we saw you be started effectively P15 on the overall grid. It will be tight in the run to turn number one, but for the most part, everybody made it through 2, 3, and even 4 wide. Just take us through where you found yourself in the opening couple of corners.
I was filling in a sandwich, I think, for both races. Very hairy first lap. In the feature race, from what I can remember, it was all the way through to sort of turn 5, turn 6. It was 3 wide. There were cars everywhere. It was pretty mad. So firmly in survival mode there, and I think I made a bad start in the sprint. But off the line, I made an amazing start, I think, in the feature race, but then lost positions through the first few turns. So yeah, that's maybe sort of something to work on. But it sort of feels a bit chaotic. There's a lot of luck that plays out, I think, in that first lap. And I didn't fare too badly. I think I gained a couple of positions, lost a couple of positions, and then things settled down a bit. In that sprint race, I had a good battle with Lee early on, and then kind of found myself in a bit of no man's land for most of the rest of the sprint, which was all right. I wasn't gaining. I wasn't kind of, the guys behind me weren't catching, so I settled for what is a reasonable sort of finish in the sprint, really.
Well, you may have settled for, what was that, third place in the end in the sprint race, but wanted to go one further in the feature race. And it looked as though from the outset you weren't going to say no to charging after the win.
Yeah, look, that was probably my best drive I've done in a league race. As I say, I didn't get a great start. Maybe lost a couple of positions. I think Sergio got past me, but I knew he'd won the sprint race. I think he did. So I thought I'll just stick behind him, and I watched as he picked his way through. The guys, going up positions, and I just thought I'll follow him. And then in the second half of the race, I took tyres. I'm not sure. I sort of checked to see if he did, but I don't think he did. So I had that in the back of my mind for the second half of the race. Just kind of sat behind him, biding my time. I felt pretty good with about 10 minutes to go. So sort of pushed on a bit, and yeah, managed to get past. But it was great, that entire feature race, just the little individual battles and making some passes, which is always nice. And I find in GT3 doesn't happen as often as maybe some others. Like I do a bit of touring cars, and that's you're making moves every lap or whatever. In GT3 you have to be a bit more patient. But yeah, it was great for that. Some really good racing. Really enjoyed it.
Well, enjoying the racing and then fighting hard with your rivals all comes together hand in hand, and we've definitely seen some fantastic battling from yourself today. But with the third place and then a win, major points on the board, and it'll put you right up there at the top of the silver class standings going into round number 3. Speaking of which, 2 weeks from now, we make our way to Suzuka to conclude our Japanese doubleheader. How are you feeling for our first endurance race round of the season?
Well, generally, I'm not that keen on 2-hour races. It's just a little bit too long, and my mind tends to wander a little bit. So, weirdly enough, if I'm, kind of close to other drivers and there's plenty of battling going on, that's better for me. If I find myself in no man's land, my mind will wander, and I'll probably end up making mistakes. So, we'll see how it goes. Suzuka's okay. I've only just switched to the BMW, but I have done like a team endurance race in the BMW at Suzuka, and that went okay. I was quite consistent, so yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And I just have to quickly ask, with your teammate Tom Bingham joining today, and I do believe from speaking to your colleague Jonathan Cook, he may be the team principal as well. Does that add a little bit of pressure perhaps on the grid now that you're under the eyes of the boss?
Oh, Tom would love that. He would love me to say, "Oh yes," but no. Tom's great, very relaxed. He's been actually turning his hand to a bit of commentary recently, so we haven't seen him on track that much. I think he's looking to change that. So we hope that he will be joining us for future rounds. And yeah, it's great to race with Tom. There's no pressure. Our team is very relaxed. We help each other out a lot. We do practice together. While there's a little bit of one-upmanship going on here and there, as you'd expect, we work really well as a team. So big shout out to those guys for all the practice and banter and all that kind of stuff that we have. So it's good.
Oh, well, that's fantastic to hear. And Russell, just before I do let you go, you've given a shout out to your teammates at Performance Link Esports. Is there anybody else you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to?
Yeah, I must thank my wife and my kids for putting up with my sim racing habit. I'm sure many of the other guys on the track can um, sympathise with that. So yeah, they're great. And also to you guys for putting on a great show. Always enjoy watching the races back. So thanks for putting on a great show.
Well, Russell, it's been my absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations once again on your performance over the entirety of today, with the double podium finishes, giving you some great points in the championship, particularly a win in the feature. And we look forward to seeing plenty more of yourself and the Performance Link esports team in 2 weeks' time at Suzuka.
Excellent. Cheers, Paul.
All the best. So hearing there from our final interview of today, the silver class driver of Russell Fowler, a very positive feeling coming from him, I must say, in terms of the vibes he's giving off. With regards to qualifying, perhaps feeling as though there's a little bit more out there in qualifying, but at the same time, taking that P4 in class and the P15 overall, and knowing that there was a place to work from going into the races, and in the sprint race, find himself right in the thick of it from the outset, and taking a P3 in class in the end, but still using that as the building block to then go hunting after the feature race win, albeit, like he said, losing out to Sergio Gonzalez after a relatively slow start in the feature race, but still, knowing that Gonzalez was the winner of the sprint, he would use his main rival as a means of following through and coming up through the order, and by never letting him go and managing the strategy, as we see all the drivers emerging from the pit lane in the background shots there, you can see he'd set himself up to be on the offensive going into the final stage of the race and to go hunt down the win and claim that win off of the KFM Motorsport driver. But still a close battle between the two of them, and I suspect we're going to see plenty more going into the future stage of this season. But today, Russell Fowler really was the man to beat in the silver class, and he demonstrated his championship credentials no less. But coming to the end of our interviews then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all of our interviewees. You've heard from, firstly, Gianni Tahart from the gold class for Quad Dash Racing. You then heard from the silver class driver of NXTGEN Racing's Paul Scott, before we then heard from the bronze class driver of Nigel Stott from Crest Autosport. And lastly, we just heard from Russell Fowler, the silver class driver from Performance Link Esports. Thank you to all of them, and congratulations on their performances today. And we look forward to seeing more from them out on circuit in round number 3. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future season, or perhaps you want to be on the grid for later this season in order to dip your toes into the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League. Well, firstly, we would recommend that you check out our website. That's at nextgenracing.co.uk, and our website will appear on screen now. It is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, and we at NXTGEN Racing have been hosting leagues for up to what is 16 and a half years, almost 17 years now on both PC and console. And some of our most successful series have been included in the likes of the PowerMax Racing E-Series, which we ran in 2020, and also the Brain Tumor Charity event, which we did have Jensen Button and James Baldwin take part in. But we've got plenty of leagues on the go currently and planned in the near future. And while on the go, we currently have the alternating weeks of the GT3 League and also the Proto GT3 Endurance Championship. And we have got upcoming for Season 4 very soon, the 4th season of the NXTCC, the NXTGEN Racing Touring Car Championship, which looks to be even bigger and better than ever after a thrilling Season 3. So it's all happening at NXTGEN Racing, and we'd love to have you join us on the grid. But if you don't necessarily want to go to our website, well, you can also follow us on Facebook, and the best way to do so is via our official Facebook group. That's at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. We can find out all similar details and also hear about the real-world escapades of the NXTGEN Racing staff and administrators, with a good number of us being real-world race marshals, if not also real-world motorsporting drivers. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to round number 3 on Wednesday, the 26th of July, 2023. We make our way to the Suzuka circuit for the one and only Grand Prix Loud, and with our first endurance race round of the season. It's going to be a 2-hour showdown at Suzuka, but who's going to be able to keep their calm, keep it cool, and keep it collected, and make sure to keep it consistent all the way through the 120 minutes of racing? We'll find out then, but until then, we've been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.